Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the special council meeting for December 11th, 2017. Just to inform you, we will have a scheduled recess at 6 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order by starting with a short address concerning council meeting decorum. A meeting of council is intended to be a place where democracy can freely take place in a respectful and safe manner. The council chamber is a workplace, and there are considerations council and staff must make to ensure that a safe work environment exists. Each councillor brings to the meeting their own individual personalities, attributes, abilities, and values. Each member of council is required to be respectful, not interrupt or disrupt another member of council, staff, or the public when they do not have the floor. Important attributes of the mayor and councillors include being fair and reasonable, objective and impartial, firm but friendly, confident but considerate, tactful and courteous, and confining discussion to within the scope of the meeting and within reasonable limits of time. Therefore, there will be no cheering, jeering, or other outbursts from the gallery to ensure that anyone speaking, whether it be a delegation, member of council, or staff, is not interrupted and do so freely without the fear of ridicule. The microphones of anyone that is being inappropriate or has exceeded their time limit will be cut off. If there are outbursts by any person in the gallery, they will be asked to stop, and if they do not comply, they'll be asked to leave. A recess is another tool we may use in order to reset the environment of the council chamber. It's our belief that if everyone is respectful of these basic considerations, this meeting and future meetings will be more effective in furthering the business of the City of Nanaimo. I'd like to call for introduction of late items, please. Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the addendum this evening, we are adding to agenda item 10A, a report titled Amendments to Municipal Solid Waste Collection Bylaw 2011, number 7128, and it's related to the implementation of automated garbage collection. Agenda item 11A, adding a report titled Response to Health, Social, and Safety Issues in the Downtown. And we're adding a delegation from Mr. Tim McGrath to agenda item 16B, which is Councillor Brennan's motion re downtown disorder, and also adding a 10-minute recess at 6 p.m. And that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Any additional items, Council? Seeing none. Motion for the adoption of the agenda as amended.
Moved as amended.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Bestwick, seconded by Councillor Kipp. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next order of business is under Public Services, item 10, 10A specifically. Amendments to Municipal Waste Collection Bylaw 2011, number 7128, related to implementation of automated garbage collection. And it's to be introduced by Mr. Victor Memmott, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Worship. This is a report that was deferred from the last council meeting. We needed time to do some housekeeping changes to the bylaw itself, and also to do some changes that would reflect the fact that in 2018 we have a transition year where we have both automated and manual garbage collection. And so we have met staff, and we bring this today so that we can bring this for adoption next week, so that by January 1st we would have the new rates implemented. Otherwise, any delay would result in a shortfall in that service area. So I will defer to Mr. Elliott, who can speak to the changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Elliott.
Thank you. Through you, the Chair, we did make a number of changes as outlined in our last meeting, and I can walk through those one by one if you like, and just explain where those changes were made.
Thank you.
So 2.92 on page 3, we talk about fees there, additional fees. So there are additional fees, and they're laid out in the Schedule A. So what there is included there are their administrative fees for exchange of carts and those carts will be exchanged at no charge, but after April, there will be a charge for that, and the charge is $25. We move on to page 6, and the concern and question was that the weight of the cans had not changed, and we've added yard waste to the containers. And that was accurate. It was taken over from the old bylaw.
Excuse me, Mr. Elliott, we're at a disadvantage. Our copies have got different,
Top corner, page 6, I think, is what we're talking about.
okay, perfect.
Top green 6.
You guys are going through the green sheets?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's just got the marks.
So the green sheets, if it's page 6, Council, it shows at the bottom of the page, page 11. And it's item number,
Sorry, it's 2,
2E, as an echo?
two point 112 G, 2E. Yes.
Thank you.
2.11 sub.
2.11?
2.11.
That's page 9 and 10. Page 10.
It's on page 11. Page 6 is the top of the page 11. Under bracket 2, item E, went from 50 to 75
Amendments
pounds.
to, nothing on the first page.
Second page, no, it's 211.
2.11, section 1,
2.
Sub 2.
section 2, sub 2E.
Sub E. Yeah,
That's page 6.
Okay.
that's page 11 of yours. Under the green.
Thank you.
So this refers to the weight of the containers, and what we've changed there is we've gone from 50 pounds complete with the container itself to 75 pounds of material. So that excludes the weight of the cart because we have added the ability to put yard waste in it. We have put a weight on it because we don't want to encourage more material going in. We want to try to maintain this. However, we're adding to the amount which was in the old bylaw.
Thank you.
And then we've just identified some detail around the location of the cart, where they're to be placed on the curb, and that's in H of that same section. And then the next page, we've taken out some verbiage in P. So that's been changed to the actual location. It was repeated in there, so we've tidied that that wording up. And then overall, we've changed the wording to commingled organic waste, and it was food waste in the past, and so that was missed in the first version. And then on the last page of the report, there was a number of areas that were taken out. Number 4, which referred to the responsibility of the carts. These are carts owned by the city, and the city will be doing the warranty work, repairs, and maintenance. And what I did refer to in the last meeting was if it was found that there was obvious abuse to the cart that we could identify as abuse. But otherwise, no, it's the city's cart, and we will be maintaining that, and that's the change that was made there.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Any questions, Council? Councillor Hong.
Thank you. Just a quick one right now for Mr. Elliott. Number 2Q. So we're allowed to mark our wheel carts any way we like, other than writing the address on the inside of the lid? Is that what it says? So I can't put my address on the inside of the lid, but I could put it on the outside?
On the inside of the lid, yes.
So we're not allowed to write anything on the inside of the lid?
Yes?
Why can't we write anything on the inside of the lid?
Actually, we discussed this on Friday, and potentially, we'd encourage the community not to write their names on these bins, because there's the option of returning them and getting different sizes, and if you decide you don't want them, they get returned to the city and reissued to another home. We don't want to have a whole bunch of Sharpie marker pens writing names down and crossing them out over and over. People can rest assured that their carts are coded by the barcode, and if they have a question whether or not they accidentally got their neighbors, if they live in a duplex, they can certainly call the city and get verification of what is your cart number, and they can verify it that way rather than using marking and Sharpie pins. Maybe if they want to use paper and tape to put their name on, that would be better, but generally we'd recommend against doing that.
Okay, I'm just, like I said, I'd just like the clarification so I could, it doesn't say that I can't mark these containers anywhere, but it says I cannot mark it on the inside of the lid. It seems like is what Q is saying. Is that just, am I reading that wrong? Because it doesn't say I can't mark it on the outside of the cart. It says I can't mark it on the inside of the cart. That's what I'm just saying. Am I reading it wrong, or am I missing a word on there?
Oh, and I believe the word is other than. So the only place we would like you to mark it is on the inside. We don't want it written on the outside of the lid, and there are two words missing there. It's other than.
Good, because that's what I thought, because I'm like, I'm not reading this right, because it just doesn't sound right in my head.
On the new one. The new one is correct.
Great, thank you.
I think that the new one is actually correct. The old one was missing that.
Thank you. You done, Councillor?
Yeah.
Thank
for
you.
this.
So just to follow up on that, if the carts do get mixed up with your neighbors, the drivers will be able to tell that, because when they do pick it up, it'll actually say, no, this cart belongs to the next door and not here.
Thank you. Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. Just on the same page, 12, bottom 2.141, container inspection and investigation indicates the Director of Engineering and Public Works may inspect food waste container, garbage container, recycling container, all wheel carts, and any contents therein. Might I just suggest that you add the Director of Engineering and Public Works or his or her designate? I can't imagine that I hope that we're not sending our Director of Engineering and Public Works out randomly to investigate or inspect. So if we could just add, so that somebody doesn't say, well, did the Director do that, or did somebody else do that? And so you might just want to add his or her designate.
Ms. Sammer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry for saying generally, we denote the director position without a specific name, and that director is able to then, through his or her own authorities within their department, direct people to go do that. So the practice is to do the departmental designation, which inherently includes what Councillor Beswick is suggesting, and it is a good suggestion, and the drafting permits that.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
Curious as to how all these changes will be put out to the community, to all the affected households.
Yeah, so we are currently doing quite a bit of public engagement with this program, and part of that will be information going out to the public through that program. And we also have lots of information currently on our website, so we'll modify that to include some of this, to say, here's some of the changes that are present in the new bylaw.
Yeah, and I'm primarily thinking of those that don't do the computer thing, which are quite a lot of people, actually. So as long as they're made aware of these changes, then that'd be great.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I was waiting if anybody else wanted to talk, so I'll proceed on with some other questions. On your rates and charges, Number 3 talks about $100 per year to upsize the garbage cart. What about the green bin? Because it doesn't mention anything about upsizing. How much does it cost to upsize the green bin?
So you're referring to Schedule A, number
Yes.
3?
On page 14 of our agenda.
So no, there is no upsizing of the green bin. There is a $25 administration fee to exchange, and there is a schedule of what can be changed. So the upsizing cart will be 120 liters larger. The standard cart, single-family dwelling, may increase their recycling cart from a 240 liter to a 360, or request an additional cart, and there would be a charge for that.
So, okay, so I thought, first of all, the recycling bins were all the same size. I didn't think there was another option to upsize or downsize. I thought that was one size recycling bin, if I'm not mistaken. So what you just read, can you just clarify that part for me?
Yes, there is, they will be 120, and they can be upsized.
The recycling bins?
Yes.
The blue ones? Because I thought we only bought one size blue. Because the green bins, I know they're 2 size, and the garbage bins were 2 size, and the blue bins were all the same size.
Yeah. No, they will be able to be upsized to 360. So what we're taking into account there are duplexes where there's more than one person using the bin, so they can be upsized.
Okay, so we're going to get bigger blue. So we actually have 2 sizes of everything, blue, black, and green. Okay. Well, the green size, the green bin, is that all the same size? Because the green bins are smaller. My dad has a small green bin.
Mm-hmm.
But how much will it cost me to upsize to a big green bin?
There's no organic upsizing. Yard and organic waste may not be upsized.
But if I have a secondary suite,
You can buy a second one.
I have a bigger bin. Because I have a secondary suite, all 3 of my bins are exactly the same size, really, really big. So that's my question, is because I'm really confused. If you have the big green bins, why can't somebody upsize to a bigger green bin if they wanted to? Because you have them. And now you're telling me I have a bigger blue bin than the one I already have as another option? So that's really confusing because we were never discussed that. And the next question I have is, why would I, as a secondary suite, get double $165 to pay for my garbage rates when a person with a single household only has to pay $100 to upsize to the exact same garbage? How is that fair for somebody with a secondary suite? Because if they want to upgrade, it should be the same price as somebody with a secondary suite, $165. It's double rates. So that doesn't make any sense on what's being fair and equitable to people. So I have concerns with that $100 rate. And again, there's a bunch of other things I'd like clarification on too, because I'm still not clear on some of these things. Thank you.
So if I've got this correct, Councillor, you're asking with reference to Schedule A.
Yes.
And there appears to be no distinguishing between an upsized blue bin that's referenced in there. Yet I do see it in section 2.9 sub 9 sub 2 sub 3. In fact, I see 2 options.
But there's no costs that's written on here. That's where I'm trying to say that it's not,
Right.
they're not connecting.
So we go to 2.9 sub 9 sub 2. It discusses the fact that secondary suites with garbage can go to a cart size from the 120 to 240 or to 360.
But there's no cost.
Right. I'm sorry, from 240 to 240 to 360. Right. You're right. Councillor
Well, thank you, Your Worship. Through to staff, I have a number of questions. Page 9 on the green sheets, which is page 4 in it, unacceptable waste automated collection. So the person pulls up to the curb. This is, I think, section 210, part 2, terms of service, and then subpart 2. It talks about the unacceptable, and then in section 3 it goes, any items listed in section 1 and 2 and put out for collection by the municipal solid waste collection system will not be collected. So if it's an automatic system that picks it up and it watches it go into the truck, that load's contaminated, how do we know, how do we go back at that person? Because it's already been picked up. So our bin, my bin is loaded with unacceptable waste material. Goes out to the curb, the machine picks it up, dumps it in the truck. They then see on the camera that it's already been picked up. So subsection 3 on there, any item listed in that will not be put out for collection, will not be picked up. Well, it will be collected automatically now.
The resident would be put on notice that this is unacceptable and that they have to conform with the acceptable materials being put in.
And when you give them, we have a process for that, there's a warning, they have an appeal,
Yes, we
and
have.
all that's in step-by-step process, and if we do it a second time, do they get a fine, or do they get cut off?
There's notification that goes to them, and we will not continue to pick the garbage up if they don't conform to the rules.
Okay, follow-ups on that too. I'm going to bylaw page 8, our page 13, 2.15, and then the completing services. When I read this, no person shall operate within the city for collection and disposal of food. It doesn't say for the basic user there anywhere, but it says anyone commingling organics or picking up recyclable waste that interferes with the municipal solid waste collection system, unless that person has been authorized by the city to operate such a system. So what authorization capability does the city have to license someone to pick up those type of materials? And that sounds like to me, I mean, I've seen it at our dump site where we're looking for tonnage sometimes to pay bills. So I concern myself when I see that we have a non-competitive clause within an open system. Am I the only one that sees that? Probably. I'm just that way. So my concern is, I don't know how that's answerable. And how can the city authorize someone to pick up commingled or materials? That's a provincial regulates the allowance to pick stuff up, do they not?
Through the chair, this would refer to the commercial and multifamily, that they can pick up garbage and recycling. Currently, they're not involved in that, but they are moving towards kitchen waste in the restaurant industry and that. So they would be done under license by the city.
The city would license that?
Well, they have a permit to operate within the city.
Okay, thank you. I'm not certain that one clarifies me. And then over in the next page 14 in the green sheets and page 9, same as Councillor Hong, I look at this. From number 1 is the dwelling unit, and then it goes 2 for the commercial units and residential. And then number 3 is that, should that be read an additional fee of 27 per dwelling unit or equivalent? Because right now it says a fee of such and such for that imposed for every dwelling unit receiving a service. And then a fee of this per dwelling unit or equivalent per day is imposed for the use of upsized garbage exchanged for the standard cost of the dwelling unit. Exchanged for the standard cost. So does that mean it's reduced or you pay both? Like, I don't see it added there. And then one more just while you're at it, number 6 on that, garbage tags for $3. How do they put out a bag now? An extra bag. Because there's a can, it's supposed to go in a can, you can't put out a bag, so where's the tag go?
So, Your Worship, a number of questions that have been posed, and I think the best way for the public to walk through this with us is to look at, if they can put up on the screen, section 4, which talks about the basic services. That's page 7 and 8 of the green sheets in front of council. and it talks about the basic services for solid waste collection at our various, actually, no, I'm going to start at 2.9, by deleting section 9 and replacing the two sections 9 as follows. So we deal with additional waste in the context of manual, and then we talk about additional waste for users receiving automated services. And the additional services are on page 8 under number 2, and they talk about the basic service user who requires additional garbage collected must request an upsized garbage cart from the city. The fees are set out in Schedule A. And then number 2 says the upsized garbage cart will be 120 liters larger than the standard cart. Single-family dwellings may increase their garbage cart size from 120 to 240. Homes with secondary suites may increase their garbage cart size from 240 to 360. And number 3, a basic service user who requires additional recycling collected must request an upsized recycling cart or an additional cart, so there's 2 options there, from the city. An administrative fee may apply as set out in Schedule A. By saying it may apply, we may amend Schedule A from time to time. Number 4, the upsized recycling cart will be 120 liters larger than the standard cart. Single-family dwellings may increase their recycling carts from 240 to 360 or request an additional cart. So we're talking about 2 different options, upsizing your carts or requesting an additional cart. So if you've got lots of recycling, you may want 2 recycling carts. Homes with secondary suites may request an additional recycling cart of either 240 or 360 capacity. There is no, number 5, permitted upsize to the commingled organic waste cart. And I'm going to speculate that has to do with the capacity of Nanaimo Organics waste at current time to be able to process with their equipment that type of stuff, but that's pure speculation, and I'll talk about that later. And number 6, a resident may opt to change the size of their cart once every 12 months, so it's a permissive option.
Excuse me if I can, above that I found about the tags too, for the non-automated collection, we still have to have tags.
Yes,
So I'm fine
that's
with
your
that.
answer.
Thank
Because
you.
we're going to be doing, until phase 2 is completed, we're having 2 systems that are going through our city. So the purpose of A is to say, well, if you're going to opt into any of those things, here's our costs. And I think I'd stand with the drafting that we have. I'm not going to start tinkering with drafting language here. If need be, and there's an interpretive bulletin that we need to put out for the community, we will, if we have to do some type of clarity. But I think it should suffice for our purposes today. I mean, duly noted the things that you've brought forward. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you very much.
It's a good thing I'm also a lawyer, non-practicing.
Councillor Armstrong.
Just one question for staff, because some people were concerned about cleaning out of the garbage tanks. Can you use the compostable garbage bags in those? Is that permissible? You can't
Yes.
use plastic, but you can use the compostable? Thank you.
Compostable, yeah, and there are larger bags that you can use for that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Beswick.
Thank you very much. Question to staff. On an annual basis, we receive monies from MMBC, which is now Recycle BC. And that amount, I think, is just south of $1 million. And my question is that $900,000+ used? I have 2 questions. Is that money used to offset the user fees on an annual basis, number 1? And number 2, Recycle BC is indicating that there may be, in all likelihood, in 2019 or 13 months from now, that municipalities providing the recycling curbside service will not be receiving those monies moving forward. And I'm just wondering how that may, if we know, impact our user fees, given that this is 100% user fee driven. And that came out of a meeting in November at Recycle BC in November.
Mr. Mema.
Thank you, Your Worship. The monies that we receive from MMBC, upwards of $1 million, are currently used to offset user fees. And so if we didn't have that source of funding, our user fees could be higher. So that's the first one. The second one, if and when MMBC decides that those funds are not available, This is a user fee supported program. The city would have a number of options, I think, in front of them. One would be if you decide that there is a public good in this program, you might decide to subsidize it. If you decide you still want to continue funding it through user fees, then user fees would go up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I'm still confused because I'm still going to go back because I can't accept this bylaw because it's still wrong until I get these answers answered. Can somebody please tell me what garbage bins we bought or what we're going to buy, sizes? So let's go over this first. So the garbage, you're telling me that we bought 3 different sizes of garbage cans. Is that correct? First question to the staff. Thank you. Garbage bins, the black ones. Can somebody tell me what we bought?
I'm assuming if we're offering 3 sizes, we've bought 3 sizes.
Which was never discussed at council. Next question. The blue. As far as I know, we bought 1 blue. It was all supposed to be the same size blue, if I'm not mistaken. Can somebody verify that one for me from staff?
My read from the bylaw is that there's 2 sizes of blue available.
The next one is the green. According to the bylaw, how many green ones, what sizes do we buy?
Based on your comments that your father's green bin is smaller than your green bin, and the bylaw saying we cannot increase your size of your bin, I'm assuming we purchased 2 types of green bins. I'll have to verify this at a later date.
So my question is why can't my dad upsize to a bigger green bin? Why isn't that allowed here on number 5, point 2, number 5 on here on page 8? There is no permitted upsizing of a commingled organic waste cart. Why not? We have 2 sizes. If I can have a big one, how come he can't have a big one? We're Asian after all. So I have questions about that because that's not right. Why we can't upgrade those. And I don't ever recall us ever, if we're talking about diversion of garbage, why would we get a 360-liter garbage bin from 120 to 240 to a 360 for houses that need it? We should be trying to reduce that number, not go up. So for us to buy bigger garbage bins, that just does not make sense to me in a world when we're trying to reduce waste. I get the green bins, yes, let them upgrade. I get the blue bins, yes, let them upgrade for recycling. But for garbage that goes to the dump, having 3 sizes doesn't make sense. And I don't ever recall making that decision when we bought the bins. So if staff can answer that, thank you.
Your Worship, may I?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to say a couple of different things. Right now, we're looking at approving the user fee bylaw. So that's the user rates for the citizens for the rollout of the automation. Some of the questions that you're raising about the automation program that was approved by council will be the subject of a pending implementation report that will delve into some of the issues that you're raising here. So for our purposes today, you're not adjudicating on the decision to move to automation or the automation program you approved on March 27th, 2017. We're looking at the bylaw. I will take away the questions that you have posed, and in this implementation bylaw, and probably sooner, we may publish something as an announcement on the website, some update of information. I'm certain that there's a rationale within the sanitation department for deciding what should be at single dwellings and multiple and suites. There's a whole different formula, and it'll be based on research done into the collections of loads that we've seen, what have we seen on the manual side. So I'm sure there's a basis for making these decisions, and there's a rationale to it. What we are working on now is communicating the rationale of these choices, and I recognize that council should know like the back of their hand, the automation program you're rolling out, because you've committed $8 million, more or less, of our budget to doing this. So I will endeavor to get that information to you.
It wasn't about automation or anything. I supported automation in a phased approach. What I don't support is this bylaw, because there's the rates and charges on Schedule A that we have to approve, and I can't approve those because they don't make sense to me. And that is the problem that I have, is not, I get that we're doing a bylaw, but these rates don't make any sense to me. And that's not that they don't make any sense. I don't know why we have those rates set, is what I'm trying to say.
Salmon.
Thank you for your patience. So in that respect, as Mr. Mema told you, this is a user rate based program. So all of the costs involved in moving from manual to automation, including education, awareness, the purchase and delivery of the bins, the purchase and training and rollout of the vehicles that'll be doing this on phase 1 and 2, all of those factor into the user fees. There's 3 other things that factor into the user fees: the costs of where we drop off the garbage, the costs of where we drop off the recycling, and the costs associated where we drop off the yard waste and kitchen waste that is now commingled. One of the things that is necessary to bring to your attention before you vote on this bylaw is the fact that with respect to the yard waste that's now commingled with the kitchen waste, there is no long-term contract in place. So the user rate predictions or forecasts that were provided to Council in March are subject to change. This means, and here's the information I've been able to glean, is that the RDN has yet to enter into a long-term contract with Nanaimo Organic Waste Company. And I understand it is that in order for that business, and it's a private business, to be able to handle the capacity of phase 1 and phase 2 of yard waste commingled with kitchen waste, it is necessary for them to rebuild their facility and purchase additional machinery. That means the figure that you based your decision on, and on which this user fee bylaw is based, is subject to change should the contract negotiations not go through from the side of the RDN, or that the business case for that private enterprise necessitate the changes to fees for the delivery and drop-off of commingled yard waste with kitchen waste. So that's one of the things that you need to be aware of. If RDN doesn't move in a pretty fast fashion to secure something with NOW, then that is going to impact phase 2 of the city's rollout of automation. And what do I mean by that? That means that we've been told, as it stands, if we started dropping off phase 1 and phase 2 at this facility, they could not handle it. And the reason why they cannot handle it is they cannot treat commingled yard waste and kitchen waste outside. They must do it inside, and they need different equipment to do it. What does that mean? That means that we need to have Plan B and Plan C. If we can't drop it there, where do we drop it? I'm assuming we can drop it at the landfill. If we drop it at the landfill, what are the fees for commingled yard and kitchen waste? I don't know. We have to run those figures and see what that might be. So those are the reasons why I've spoken up, that additional work needs to be done on the rollout of automation. These are just things that just take time to work through, and we'll do our due diligence and make sure our backup plans for the costing of dropping off each of those streams: garbage, recycling, solid waste, food, kitchen waste, or commingled with yard waste. 3 different categories, and each of those has a different fee associated with them. And so Councillor Beswick is correct in bringing to our attention that should the provincial regulation of recycling change, that may have some impact on us. We still have to look at it, but I would think the provincial government is supporting zero waste, and they're not going to make it cost prohibitive for communities to encourage and carry out recycling. So hopefully that doesn't result in any financial changes to the user fees. So I stand by the recommendation for putting through this bylaw today for the reason that we do need to change and adjust those fees prior to fiscal year end. Otherwise, starting in January, we will have a gap and have to incur additional costs that we're not charging users for, and I don't think we're able to do that retroactively. So it's critical that this thing get put in place and any changes be done by amendment in the new year.
Thank you. Councillor Yocum.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's a couple of comments and then a couple of questions. I don't know where I should begin here.
If we could stay to questions, because we haven't got a motion on the floor
Everyone
yet.
else had a pretty good ramble, though. So anyways, thank you. Question I have then is, Ms. Sammer sort of touched on, so I'd like more clarity around the plan, around the automation. And also, to me, obviously, this plan has been well thought out. We're in the hundreds of thousands cost overruns in this program. We supported up to the ballpark around $8 million to make transition from the fact staff were getting injured in the old system, and also spending around there $3-point-something million on these bins, which isn't clarity. It seems like we're sort of all over the map there. So the question I would have is, what is the plan? Because this is sort of feels like a mess. We're all over the map with our comments, and there doesn't seem clarity. So, and I know you guys are putting a hard spot because it's all pretty fresh. I need to know the plan. And the question I would have is, if we approve this evening, is there space for amendments? Because there's so much where this is new. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what, and staff are going to have so many, like the weight, for example, or the 1 meter apart. I see going to be a little cause some chaos if they have suites and whatnot. So hopefully there's space so we're not being, it's punitive or unworkable. So those are my questions, I guess. But the comments I want to make was about the $8 million we spent to support the staff on the previous injuries. So those are my two questions, though, so I don't ramble. May I please? What is the plan, and is there flexibility?
So I advised at the Finance and Audit Committee, and I think I may have advised at our last meeting here, that implementation report will come forward in early January. And I support the phased approach because we're supposed to learn lessons learned from phase one. So if there's adjustments that need to be made to the bylaw, we'll make them in January. So that you can expect a fulsome implementation plan. And by that I mean having contingency plans for all aspects of the rollout of this so that we can minimize any further impact on the user fees. We'd like to keep them the same that we've estimated them, but there's a number of moving parts. One is whether or not the RDN is going to be able to get into that agreement pronto with NOW. The other is, and hopefully, the union might think about setting aside its concerns over the city's decision to use public education and awareness folks during the bin delivery, because that has dollar figures attached to it. And if they also set aside any grievances for the non-inclusion of a fair wage clause in the purchase of the bins. Both of those could result in additional costs for both phase one and phase two. So I'm hopeful maybe they might not pursue those.
And my last one, sorry, last question, which is key for my question is, Ms. Sammer, and there's space, I think you said in January when we look at this, after phase one, to make some amendments if possible to this. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Fuller.
Actually, the last question that Councillor Yocum asked was what I wanted to know, if the amendments can be made, when they can be made.
Thank you. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. This is my second time speaking, so I would so move if you're ready for a motion.
It should generally be the
I'm sorry.
acting mayor.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, I would so move then that the acting mayor move the recommendation.
Thank you. Before we move on to that, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. One is with respect to the inquiries that Councillor Hong was making, and the wording is slightly confusing. However, standard issue is a 120-liter green bin, a 240-liter blue bin, and a 120-liter black bin or garbage bin. And when it talks about the fees, it talks about upsizing from 120 to 100 to 240 in the case of garbage, an upsizing from by 120 liters from 240 to 360 on the recycling. So there is not a third option. It's 240, 360 only. The question I was going to ask, however, is two questions. One is, I thought we were told that during this interim period that the public, and I pulled it up on the website here, but the public, if they're in the automated and they still need, for the first 3 months, if they still need additional capacity on garbage, they can put out extra bags or one extra bag as long as it's got a $3 ticket on it. Am I correct?
Yes, there is the ability for staff to pick up the manual pickup, and that's where the $3 tag would come into place.
Okay. On the flip side of that, but that'll only go for 3 months. So once you have determined that if you're regularly putting out an extra bag, you better want to think about getting either an extra container, because the black is 120, 240, or an option would be two 120 liters to get the same result. You'll need to think about that. So after 3 months, they'll no longer be picking up bags from automated homes. Am I correct?
My understanding to that is that the $3 tag will exist, and that's why it is in the fee schedule. So if you have the odd occasion that you have family or extra family, and you don't want the larger bin, but you want to put out an extra bag, that you can do that. And so that option will be available moving forward.
And lastly, while we're on the item, am I correct in understanding that there's been contemplation as we roll out and as the system matures of being able to credit people based on your daily rate, credit people for not putting out waste? In other words, if you don't put organics out for 4 weeks, then you would theoretically get 3 weeks credit at the daily rate.
Yes, that is in discussion as to how that would work, but that option seems reasonable for people that are not having to put out the bins on a regular basis. That would be, take some time to understand what that would look like, but that is definitely being discussed and how that would look.
Great. Contemplation, yes. Thank you. Mr. Bema.
So, Your Worship, I know we'll deal with this when we get to it, but the issue of credits will always be a challenge, at least for my office, in many respects, because you have a system to maintain, and so if we go on demand services, we may have to change our user fees so that we can account for that. So it becomes complicated from a pricing perspective, but I think we'll deal with this when we get to it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. Just to go back onto those tags, I remember this discussion because I asked the question, do we generate revenue from these tags? And when the whole system, when we start switching to automation, those tags weren't going to be an option. That's what we were told, because we weren't going to have that revenue anymore when we had this discussion. Because if we have the tags and then the drivers actually have to go out and toss the garbage into the garbage bin, well, what's the point? They're still going to get probably injured. So that was the whole point when we had this discussion that Charlotte said that they were going to eliminate tags altogether when you had automation. Am I the only one that heard that? Because I asked about the loss of revenue. Or did other people, I just want to verify that other people hear that when we were there, or are we keeping the tags? Are we keeping tags or not keeping tags?
Mr. Bema.
So from what I see, at least from the bylaw, we're keeping the tags.
But that's for manual collection.
Yeah. So,
not for automation.
Yeah. So even if we went full automation, there would be instances where it's not cost effective for a resident to have a second bin. like Miss Samra said, you got Christmas, you got family in. Are you going to are we forcing people to buy an extra bin for that 1 month? So I from an operation perspective, Mr. Elliott could speak further, but I see the tags as an option that I think, if feasible, should remain for those,
And I completely agree with you, Mr. Memma, but that was not what was presented to us when we made this decision, is what I'm saying. I clearly remembered that, like, oh, great, we're going to lose revenue on these tags once we go to automation. And I made that comment.
Not to contradict my colleague, but I will, in the interest of the right information. It would defeat the purpose of going to automation to have garbage collectors get out of the vehicle, go and pick up a tag bag and put it in. So residents are going to have to figure out how they're going to space out how much garbage they're putting in if they have more one week than the other, or upsize or buy an additional.
That's what I was told. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Well, thank you, Chair. I really don't want to prolong this, but it's been a good discussion. If what I've gathered is correct, well, beyond that, I think we all know this is a huge project, and we're going to do a lot of learning as it rolls out. And I'm pleased to hear that there's room to make amendments in the new year to the bylaw as we see needful. I'm also hearing from Mr. Memma that he needs this bylaw passed for his budget, and I would just as soon move ahead and we can deal with the many questions and concerns that come up as we head into the new year, and deal with them as they come forward. But I think we should get this bylaw passed and move on.
Thank you. So, Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that Municipal Solid Waste Collection Amendment Bylaw 2017, number 7128.09, to update the bylaw for the implementation of automated garbage collection and set the rates for 2018, pass first reading.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Beswick. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Show whose count. Councillor Kipp, Fuller, and Hong opposed. Motion passes. Next.
And I would move that Municipal Solid Waste Collection Amendment Bylaw 2017, number 7128.09, pass second reading.
Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Beswick. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Show Councillor Fuller, Kipp, and Hong opposed. Motion carries.
And finally, I would move that Municipal Solid Waste Collection Amendment Bylaw 2017, number 7128.09, pass third reading.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Beswick. All those in favour? Opposed? Councillors Fuller, Kipp, and Hong opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, public safety. Response to health, social safety issues and in the downtown, pardon me. And it's to be introduced by Mr. Dale Lindsay, Director of Community Development. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a formal presentation for Council this evening, but there are a couple of comments I'd like to make about the report and maybe set it in some context of where this is coming from. So if Council will recall earlier, I guess it was late spring, early summer, there was the discussion about the rezoning application on Wesley Street for the supervised consumption service. At that time, Council gave direction leave to staff to go away and develop a process to address some of the health, social, and safety issues that we're seeing in the downtown. So since that time, staff have went away, both staff in my department in the community and cultural planning, and also working closely with staff in the bylaw department, held 3 public open house engagement sessions, and we also went around and knocked on literally every door of every business in the downtown to get some feedback and commentary about what people are experiencing and what people would like to see. So the report you have in front of you this evening is really a summary. Staff have taken all those comments that we've got at those open houses, and tried to synthesize them down into both some sort of shorter-term actions that we think are available, but also some longer-term work that would require work beyond staff and council, but also working closely with our partners. So there's sort of two parts to the recommendation, and the first is basically asking us to go out and work on some of those shorter-term solutions. A number of those have budget implications, and we've tried to put some rough numbers in there for you this evening about what those could be. And for those items, we've actually made a recommendation that it be referred to the Finance and Audit Committee. There's in the report itself, it talks about the expectation of being approximately 257,000. 267,000, sorry. That's a total combined of all of these items. Some of those items, many of the shorter term items are about 160, and 100 was put in there from staff looking at sort of this issue about public realm improvements in the downtown. Diana Krall was one of the sites mentioned, and others. Again, that's really just a placeholder number at this time, but I want to give council some sense of where that number was coming from. But also we'll be prepared to talk more detailed about it when we get to the Finance and Audit Committee. That was all I had, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, just in regards to the BC Housing Modular Housing Program, with budget being first and foremost right now, I have not set a question to Ms. Sammer and staff to find out which lands they would be looking at. So I will be doing that in the new year, but I felt that it was not appropriate at this time because of the pressures for the budget. So I will request if a look at which lands could be possible for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps we can get a motion on the floor. Councillor Brennan?
Sure. I would move that council direct staff to proceed with the identified priority actions and further develop the remaining actions in conjunction with community partners and refer items with associated budget requirements to the Finance and Audit Committee for review.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. Definitely in support of this. We just got it this evening, or on our iPads earlier. So I was just wondering, we passed tentative budget. If there's space to have that conversation in the, around the budget, for the simple fact is, the first thing I look at this, and being here now for 3 years, and walking the delicate line of the city of not taking out bearing the cost of senior government's offloading, which they have no problem doing. But nevertheless, I think Mr. Horn does a great job, but I believe we should somehow, we got to manage to get some supports in place for Mr. Horn and get some people working around these social issues. I don't know how to exact, like, we just got to beef this team up somewhere, somehow. To have committees do great work, but is a start, but I'd like to see more bodies implemented somehow into this realm and have more of a charrette of a larger conversation. And I know we are grateful for the work everyone does in this area, and I know it's not, some people feel like it's not the city's responsibility, but it is. We've got to take it to the city and some of these subjects. For example, we just passed the extended the security downtown here. And we all know, one would realize that's sort of a Band-Aid approach. And I want to think deeper and the bigger picture, how we can really tackle this. And I don't know if it's through programming partnerships with Island Health and other provincial ministries. So I look forward to that, and hopefully we can have that sort of roundtable, larger conversation to go forward. But I am a firm believer that we have to beef up the social plan department, Mr. Horn. But I'll leave it at that, and I look forward to that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sammer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Yocum, the reason why we brought this report forward tonight is it's in advance of you approving a budget for 2018. So we wanted you to take a look at some ideas for your consideration, and at the Finance and Audit Committee deliberations, you can suggest adding some of those in, and then you're able to address this and make sure you're comfortable with the investment that the city's making in this area. We also brought it forward to show you how much work has been going on on this file because it's also sort of a companion piece to Councillor Brennan's motion that's coming later in the day. Just to let you know that we've got committees working away at this. There's been a ton of work done on it, so we've got some ideas for you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Great. Thank you. This is a good report of some of the things that we need to do and some of the things that we have done. Just a question about additional security services via contracts. $25,000 for the summer months. Well, it's obvious to us that we need it for a lot longer than the summer months. So if I'm not mistaken, do I just times this number by 4 to give me $100,000 for security? Is that, if we feel that we need it all year round, is that the number that we would go by, Mr. Lindsay?
I think Your Worship, how I'd answer that is going back to these recommendations are what we heard from the community. So the priority in our discussion seemed to be about security during those peak periods in the summer months. So what we did was we put a monetary value to what it would be to do that. If council wanted to extend that beyond the summer months, obviously there'd be a higher cost to that. This year, you originally had approved it for the summer months, and then there was additional monies found to extend that service just recently up until the end of the year. But this is for 2018, of course.
Thank you, because that's where I was getting at, is we had it for the summer months, and then the merchant said, where did our security go? And they demanded us put it back for the rest of the year. So I get what we spent, but it seems like the downtown merchants want it a lot more than just the summer months from what they've come and told us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
I've seen this report. We just reviewed it at the Community Vitality meeting, and it's a good report. There's some good stuff happening in it, but there's some stuff that, to me, is not happening and not happening quickly enough. I found out today we've had 48 deaths from fentanyl overdose in Nanaimo. We are on par with doubling last year's total. When we had the overdose prevention site set up at City Hall's parking lot, inevitably, the vast majority of the people that came in talked about getting treatment, getting detox. That's what they wanted. But there's so few detox beds for the whole of the North Island, north of Victoria. I think there's about 6 or 8 or not many. That's the first step. Treatment beds, sadly lacking. I look at this report and I see 1 to 5 years for additional detox beds. I would like to see the city put up a property that we own and say to the provincial government, okay, this is our part, we have the property, we want the dollars to build these beds, and we want the funding to operate them. Because until that happens, these deaths will continue. You can have as many safe injection sites as you want, but the deaths will continue until there are other steps taken. And these are money-saving things, which you would think governments would love to support. But I think the politics of it is what they love to support. Housing the homeless. We're looking at advocating for more rent subsidies in this. Great idea. Should have been done ages ago. The city itself provides some rent subsidies. So there's certain things in here we are doing, certain things we're doing well, certain things we can do quickly, but there's others that I see just being left on the table because they can be left on the table. If you house a homeless person, you save upwards of $30,000+ a year in taxpayers' monies, and that's across the board. If you offer someone treatment, you offer them that chance to get off of the drugs, and it may not work, and 9 times out of 10, it won't work the first time. That saves the public money, and it saves public money in the social and safety issues as well. So, I like the recommendation, but I want to see some of this acted upon more quickly, and I would love to see the city offer up a property to the province for detox beds. Tomorrow, I'd like to see that. Not 1 to 5 years. Tomorrow.
Thank you. Councillor Beswick.
Thank you very much. This is a really important one and difficult one. And when we indicate that we're wishing to bring this back to the FNA, the Finance and Policy, is that this week? Like, is that Wednesday? Or is that sometime in 2018?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think Mr. Lindsay and his team are ready to bring this to Wednesday's meeting.
Is it on our agenda for Wednesday?
It's not, because our agenda came out on Friday. So there's nothing that stops this to be added to Wednesday's meeting. If it's not discussed on Wednesday, it can be brought in early in the new year. We have to be mindful that our budget, even when we approve it, hopefully on the 18th, is still open for amendment anyways, until we set the property tax rate. Even after that, we can still do this. But if there's things that can be discussed at the Wednesday meeting, it will be up to the committee to accept that if time permits. Thank you.
Thank you. That was actually going to be my next question, because if there's $160,000 or $65,000 worth of recommendations, and which may grow inside this report, then I think it's something that we need to have in front of us as sooner rather than later, so that we can prioritize and move something out or move something in or move something further on. Secondly, this request came at the June 19th, 2017 council meeting. And so we're essentially 6 months later. And moving these initiatives to the greater good of the whole and downtown and beyond, I think has to somehow be put into the work plan to be more corrective than 6 months later, and we're going to take it to the committee on Wednesday to approve. It just seems like an extremely long time for me on something that in everybody's minds is as important as it is. And while I won't take it up with Councillor Yoakum tonight, but I do believe that, yes, we have our responsibility as a municipality, but I also believe that this is a significant download. Significant. Not kinda. And I think that the province, and we're talking about having roundtables, and we're talking about having more discussions, and we're talking about having more workshops. So I think that we're probably workshopped to death with roundtables about another conversation, about another solution. And so the best solution beyond talking about it again is actioning something that we probably have in reports that go back 10 to 20 years. And I would certainly like to see us action some of the reports that we have that we can dust off and produce some outcomes. And unfortunately, by us taking so long, what it forces individuals to do is take it upon themselves, almost become vigilante, and set up their own units of help with volunteers and et cetera, et cetera. And that is not acceptable. So I just want to make it really clear to me that the province, and sure, we need more help inside our city staff to sure. But we need to pound our fists with the province for help. And I'm sure if they said they could help us, I'm sure we could find the property for one aspect of our problems. So I'll be supporting this. I look forward to having a further conversation on Wednesday.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. I'm not going to debate the downloading, et cetera, because really what we need to do is just start to work together with other levels of government and try to form some partnerships around tackling these questions. But what we have sort of the primary responsibility for, and it's indicated here, is in our built environment, and that's a big part of this. The increased residential density downtown, those getting people on the streets, eyes on the streets, feet on the street, those kinds of things help to enliven a downtown and make it more difficult for smaller groups to be as disruptive as they are feared to be now. Public realm enhancements to Diana Krall Square. We have known that for well over 10, 12 years now, that Diana Krall Square is problematic, and it needs to be it needs to be built up. We had a really good report given to us from the downtown BIA when it was the partnership, that had given us lots of ideas on how to warm up the plaza, how to make it attractive for lots of people, and that's what you need is a mix of lots of different kinds of people. I'm not keen on sort of singling out people with difficulties or mental health issues and saying they're the problem. I much more would like to see us try to fill those places in our community with lots of different people, just a diversity of people. So when you go through this report, you can find issues that are identified that are just our issues, and we can do those. And I think there's a figure of about $267,000 that we are able to make a significant impact on how these things work in our city. And we should do that. We should add that to our budget. Maybe that's 0.25% of our budget. And it's something that we have been discussing and ruminating on and complaining about and talking to people about and wringing our hands about. And we have a report here that says we can have an impact with $267,000. I think we should quickly send this to the Finance and Audit Committee, quickly wrap around our heads that we have to put money into our community to affect change, and that without that we won't have change. And unless we're willing to kick money in, I just can't see the senior levels of government saying, well, we're going to come in on a white charger and fix this for you. In terms of detox and us handing over the property for it, that would be fabulous. That's great. That's a quick win for us. But really, the money that's necessary, a city lot, is probably the least of the worries. And finally, this doesn't mention it, but we need to, and I know this is controversial, and I know I'm probably in the minority at this point, but we need to approve the request from the medical health officer that we designate the our current overdose prevention site. We need to approve the designation of safe injection site so that we can have the discussion around where the supports are going to come from, how people are going to access the supports. We know that the supports are essential. As Councillor Fuller said, everybody coming into the into this the Quickie overdose prevention site that was put up on our parking lot, we're talking about wanting to access supports around detox, etc. And if we designate a safe injection site, those kinds of services wrap around it. So I think we need to look at that again. So anyway, I thank staff for the support. It's a good report. I too think maybe we could have got it a little sooner than we did. Nevertheless, it's here, and I'd like to see us act on everything that we can, and not be afraid to spend some money in order to improve the lives of people who are downtown homeless and mentally ill or drug addicted, but also improve the lives of the people who live downtown and make downtown an attractive place for people to want to go to. Without that, it really probably doesn't really matter what your downtown looks like. Nobody wants to come.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to staff, I want to express my appreciation for this report. I really like the way it's laid out. I like the time frames for the different strategies, some which can be achieved fairly quickly and others which are longer term. And I like very much the fact that the Attachment A detailed action plan is that. It's detailed. It has some very concrete suggestions, many of them I think at fairly minimal cost. And I would like to see us proceed with these as quickly as possible. I notice that within the recommendation of staff is that the cost of $267,000 be included in the 2018 budget, and I will certainly be supporting that when we have our conversation with the Budget and Audit Committee. So thanks to staff for this report. I'm encouraged that there's some great ideas here, and I'd like to see us start to implement them as soon as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you. And I do support this going to the Finance and Audit. I think that the number of $267,000 isn't going to do a dent in the issues that we have with homelessness, but it will help with the merchants. I don't feel that $25,000 is enough. I don't know what we're going to spend $100,000 on a study for. I don't think that's, at this point, this action plan should be really a short-term thing that we can do and deal with that other stuff later. But money for security, I think, is important. One of the key things I have issue is, well, it's not an issue, but, and I get why we do it, is the LED light replacement program. If you go to Victoria Crescent or Skinner Street, man, those suckers are bright, or the intersection there. Yet all the other lights along Commercial Street are yellow, so, and they're not as bright. So if we want to do that, I think we should push that forward and get it done. Why wait up to 5 years? If it's in the action plan, let's get that done. Let's do downtown. We're budgeting for LED lights. We've budgeted for rollout. Well, let's just roll it out downtown so we can get that off the list for this year. And I agree that frequent power washing is important. And I like this note that the staff mentioned here about, you know, the area of the A&B Sound building. Well, I can't wait till we get that derelict bylaw. So I think that is some of the things that I like to see, that we can increase some cost to cover from those things with merchants that aren't. You know what? I don't need you guys to come and pressure wash in front of the Queens, because I do that myself, because I care about my sidewalk. So a lot of other merchants do care about theirs. It's those derelict buildings and those buildings that people don't care about, the owners don't care about, are the ones that need the work to be done. And it shouldn't be on the taxpayers' back. They should be paying more, subsidized. Mm-hmm. So we can't get that done. So I will support this, but not the $267,000 at this amount. I'd like some more information, mainly on the security, because I don't think security for summer months is enough. And I don't know what that $100,000 for that study is going to do, so I'd rather see that whole amount actioned. Thank you.
Thank you. I see you're in the queue, Ms. Samar. Can I hold you off till after debate, please?
After debate, but before you vote.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
My apologies to Clearview Detox. It's 12 beds for the whole of the island above Victoria. Yeah. Part of the reasons of the safety and part of the causes of us moving forward so quickly on a lot of this are as a result of the safe injection site at Wesley Street. People are not leaving the area, and they are causing disturbances. So yes, let's rezone it, site-specific, and make it bigger. Let's do that. We need to look at new ways of doing things, and we need to come up with our own solutions. The province is not removing their order because no one has died at an overdose protection site to this date, not a person. So those could be set up in other areas of the city. Or we could look at making a rezoning to a number of commercial areas, such as walk-in clinics, each and every supportive housing building. So all of these things could have smaller safe injection sites. It's a known fact that 10% of users actually go to these injection sites. And it's a known fact that at least half of the people dying are dying in their own homes. So how do we accommodate those people? By putting up a bigger safe injection site? I don't think so. Anyway, that will come up. It's a future question around rezoning, and it should be an interesting debate in and of itself. I'll support this, but like Councillor Hong, I don't think the monies are going to be enough, but we need to also move forward with some of those longer-term initiatives, and that's rent supplements from the province, detox beds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We can do the quick things quickly, but let's get on some of the longer-term things while we're doing those quick things quickly.
Thank you. Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. I just want to relay, numerous years ago, I was fortunate to be a board of director at VIU, and VIU, I'm going to get it links to my comment here, without government dollars, took a bold move to to work with, enhance, and better the lives of children in care, former children in care, with the tuition waiver program led by VIU, Dr. Nielsen. There was no government money at the time. Recently, the NDP government has stepped up, is funded now. So the reason I want to state that, it was the right thing to do. So I believe we invest in this, it's the right thing to do. It's just a comparison on social issues, and I'm really proud of what happened up there. It's had great results, and they had to make the money work within. First year, there were 16 cohorts. Up now, they're well over 100. So it was the right thing to do. So the reason I'm stating that is doing the right thing to do. At the same time, we have to lobby for government to do a better job in building relations with government. We've never met with government once except over the dam fiasco a few years ago, which was a nightmare meeting that day. So nevertheless, doing the right thing to do, I'm comfortable with. And I've spent 3 years being pretty fiscal responsible at this table with taxes and whatnot. So I'm comfortable of investing in this area. There'll be better outcomes for everybody, most of all the people that are affected by the unfortunate journey where they are today. So I want to state that within realm. And then maybe we have to incorporate in child welfare, we have like a Jordan's principle where people should go without and you work out the costs. So we got to build a relationship, maybe get some MOUs and build relationships with government. So I want to share that on my passion and why I believe we should invest in this area for the betterment of all. And in regards to the safe site, while until someone proves me otherwise, I'm just reading it right now, and a few hiccups, but I'd like to learn more and read more about. I'm still a fan of the mobile units, and I don't know if we will be getting to that conversation tonight, but my position will still be the same, be supporting mobile units. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kipp.
Thank you. The built environment's a hugely important one, just for everyone. It should be cleaned up all the time. $260,000 isn't much when you think 75,000 of it is for power washing. And so from my perspective, I think people clean it up. Emergencies need mobile, they need portable stuff. If there's an event going on out of the 22 disasters that we might face, they're recognized here. We need mobile, we need the ability to outreach and to get to these people more. The government has the ability to put this in wherever they want. They, of course, want to do an injection site or whatever, if we're talking about that. They'd like to see the zoning so that it meets the needs, but they have the right to do it because we're under an extreme situation right now. So I'd like to see, instead of when you're talking about we don't have relationships with these people now, and that's what really bugs me. It's been way too long to say now we have to build relationships with the RCMP and the social workers and that. My gosh, they're all getting paid, they're getting checks. Get down to the street. Build relationships with the clients on the street. Let's get down to the people on the street. The more meetings and cookies we have, we should just give the cookies to the people on the street. They'll be better. They need a place to live. Housing first, homes first, streets to homes. 2008, we did a homeless strategy, an update on it from 2005. But all we've done again is have more meetings and more meetings. So I'm really tired of building relationships with the RCMP and with the hospital and all those people. I'm tired of building relationships when I don't think stuff's getting done. Cars driving through, every time one of our city trucks drive through, they should pick up a garbage can. Every time they drive through or every week, they should power wash something or clean something. That's what that staff is for. And to say we need more work to clean our downtown, oh my. So let's make the motion right now. I mean, we have a report. We have to go back to Finance Committee and send it back. And to me, I was ready to make a decision on this type of outreach. When did we open? Boxing Day last year. Yep. A year ago, Boxing Day, we opened that injection site. We got in all sorts of terrible. We probably spent $10,000 closing the staff that day. My gosh, folks. We're just blowing money on stuff and not getting stuff done. Our Deloitte report says that. Our core service review says that. If we can't treat the lowest level of our community with the highest dignity, it's just all jibber jabber. So I'm ready. I'd vote for it right now. Sorry for my.
It has been moved and seconded. Ms. Samra, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my job as a city manager is to give you my professional advice. And I'm thrilled to hear that social wellness, which is one of your priorities, is a priority for this council. And what you have in front of you, I think is a good start. But to think that this is a map, a roadmap forward to doing massive investments in social wellness, I think I want to temper your expectations with what can be achieved with the work in front of you. We have limited resources in this portfolio. We have nearly 700 staff, and up until last year, when I put in the budget an additional social planner, there was only one employee in the city of Nanaimo working on this portfolio. Now we have 2 out of 700. So if social wellness is something that council wants to invest in, then it's going to require more than just saying this is a good thing, let's go out and do this. We have to look at it from a more strategic perspective. And when you look through this report, we see some of the drivers, but the drivers I see are intoxication, homelessness, and aggressive panhandlers. I think from a policy perspective, this is me being a policy wonk, and policy is what you use to design programs, and programs are the services you deliver to the community. So you need to get the policy lens right in the first instance. So I think that any discussion about where you're going to go from here is driven by your social wellness perspective and what are the things that we can do. And here I see a lot of money being put towards consultants because we only have 2 staff. And those staff are also working on a ton of other files. So this is some great recommendations, but to approach this in a different way is how I would recommend it on Wednesday, to look at what are some short-term things you can do to invest, to treat the symptoms, because that's what you're doing with some of this stuff. You're treating the symptoms. You're not looking at a cohesive, integrated approach with other entities. So I'd like to have some discussions about that, and I can give you an example of where we're going. You said a couple weeks ago, we need the downtown cleaned, we need to deal with this stuff. And we identified money to invest in it, I think $25,000. Well, when I sat down with Public Works and Bylaw and Dale's group, we discovered that among us, we could map out a 24/7 coverage of the downtown and use existing resources to treat the problems. And what you're going to get a report on is a way that our bylaws, our public works, our RCMP resources, a number of things can be used to deal with these. And we're looking at 4 to 5 hotspots that are checked on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week, looking at who's working when, and they include public works on its night shift, coming down in 2 different times to look at these spots and deal with the trash and deal with cleaning and deal with other things. So by taking the time to work across departments and look at how can we, this is a priority, how do we deal with it, we found those resources. And then we only needed to expend another $5,000 or $6,000 for the footprints contract, although we're going to extend it out for 90 days so we can problem solve better. We were able to invest in the John Howard Society to come up and do the cleaning with the needles. So staff was able, by working together, to identify what to do. We talked to the owner of this facility who has security and cleaning issues, and he said, wow, you're doing that? I want to invest in that. I have safety concerns. So by looking at all the different entities and seeing who can do what, we can start to piecemeal this together. We could do it by having a meeting and doing a study, or we can action it. And what I'm hearing from this council is you want action. You want us to start doing things. So when you take a look at this between now and Wednesday, I'd urge you to take a look at some of the options and see which ones we can really do the investment in. And the action plan is sort of a high-level summary, but is in no means an action plan. Action plans for any one of these things are quite complex. They involve a number of steps. You have to do your due diligence. You have to see who your other partners are and see what they're bringing to the table. So this work can get done, but I'm suggesting you might want to invest in additional staffing so that we don't just have 2 social planners. You might want to have somebody with multicultural background, somebody with poverty background, people that have a different skill base that come to this with different problem-solving skills so that we can come up with solutions that aren't from a strictly policing mind, from a bylaw enforcement mind, or from social planning, which is a different aspect of dealing with this programming. These really don't fall within our jurisdiction, but they do by necessity, and so we have to look at how does the city take on new lines of business and look at it differently than just being a bylaw or a social planner. I know that's a lot to say, but I thought it was important to do there because when staff suggest you take on new programming, you need to understand what that means, what's the approach we're going to take to do it, and what type of investment you need to make behind it so that you can achieve the results that you want. We've heard from all the consultants that planning, preparation, due diligence, implementation plans with backup plans, all those things are needed, and performance measures. If you're going to do street cleaning and clean something, what's the performance measure? What's the outcome there? The street is cleaner. But has that addressed social wellness? Has social wellness improved? Have you dealt with the strife and trauma that some of these people are experiencing? What have we done from that sense? So I support, it's a good report, and given the monumental task of something as large as this, I think it's pretty awesome what they brought forward to you, and it's really encouraging to see this type of excitement about it. So I look forward to having these discussions from a budget perspective and a programming perspective. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. And I did say I was going to call the question after Ms. Samra, so I'm calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So it's now 6:03. We will be having a
Meeting tomorrow, 3 or 7.
Thank you very much. We'll reconvene the meeting now. If council would take their seats. The next item is sale of pets in storefronts. And this is to be introduced by Ms. Tracy Samra, Chief Administrative Officer. The purpose of this report is to provide council with recommendations on whether to support the ban of pet sales in storefronts.
Ms. Samra?
You're on.
I got one of my cats from this place, so I'm not going to speak to it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mema.
So you recall that sometime in summer we had this issue come before you, and a report was developed with options for you to look at, and there's some delegations also that want to speak to this, and so we will just issue those comments as a way of starting the conversation.
Thank you very much. We have one delegation, Mr. Barry Bender, Paws and Jaws, to speak regarding proposed ban on the sale of puppies, kittens, and rabbits in pet stores.
I have 5 animals.
Good evening, Mr. Bender. You have up to 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. First, I'd like to thank City Council, the Mayor, and City staff who've carefully considered all options in regards to bylaw changes to the sale of pets in the Nanaimo pet stores. While this may be a topic of interest to many members of the community, it has an overwhelming impact on Paws and Jaws, both emotionally and financially. We hope that the support of our many customers, our petition gathered almost 900 names in a few short weeks, have shown that the stigma that all pet stores purchase from puppy mills does not apply to us, and that we have and would like to continue to offer pets of all types, including puppies from good breeders that are well socialized, healthy, and loved. We spend all of our time and energy ensuring that this high standard of care is met for all our pets in our store, from carefully selecting our breeders to ongoing husbandry, socialization, and TLC while in our store. We also try to best educate each and every one of our customers on the best pet to fit their needs and how to offer them proper care and training once settled at home. So thank you again. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Don't go anywhere. We've got questions for you. Councillor Armstrong.
I just wanted to confirm, I believe at your last meeting, you said you only ever had one complaint lodged against the pet store and it was addressed immediately? And that was over a reptile light, is that correct?
Man,
or am
I
I
can't
mistaken?
remember that. I'm just wondering if my manager mentioned that. Alana, she's not here though.
Okay, yeah.
Because of the early meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much, sir. I see no further questions for you. Is someone prepared to move the motion, please? The recommendation.
I'll move it.
Councillor Armstrong.
Sorry.
Is there a seconder?
Which one are we?
The recommendation.
Regulate the sales.
Thank you. Would you like to read it out?
Yes. I make the motion that council regulate the sale of puppies, kittens, and rabbits in storefronts and direct staff to amend the animal control bylaw with specific conditions and requirements for stores to carry puppies and kittens.
Thank you. Seconder? Seconded by Councillor
Thorpe.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Armstrong?
Oh, no.
Thank you. Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the recommendation here. Sorry, I'm on an iPad hiccup. So the recommendation is what it states there, council regulate the sale, blah, blah, blah in there. Is that what we're passing it? Sorry, I was reading the report again. I'm a little in a conflict. I'm trying to grapple with the fact if we don't, just say that for hypothetically, if the motion failed, would it be as is status quo today with no other option? I see option 3. Because where I'm concerned is exotic animals. I don't know if there's exotic species at this pet store, but I am a little bit concerned about the exotic animals as well, besides puppies, cats, and rabbits. So I'm just opening that up for part of my questioning as well, because that seems to be not on the table. And if I may be offside if they're not even part of the store. I don't know if they are or not.
Is in response to puppies, kittens, and rabbits in storefronts. So it doesn't include any other species.
So just to, I'm looking at the speakers, Your Worship. So would all species not be a concern? I get what we're trying to regulate here, if we get to that point, but it makes sense to regulate all species, not just those 3, in my opinion, for myself.
I would venture to suggest that the federal and provincial government have a whole wealth of regulations on exotic species, prohibitions, probably quasi-criminal consequences for those as well. So this is about if Yeah. We haven't received any complaints, I think, on that end either.
And then, okay, actually, sorry. So if we were going to regulate it, would it be the city regulate? I see some partnership with SPCA and the cost for those type of, for another bylaw person. So how would this look? If I'm looking for in the report, if you could refresh me, Ms. Amra.
So I didn't draft the report, and I wasn't briefed on the report, but the report has come forward because it was important to deal with it. If we take on a new regulatory function, it'll require some resources to see what role, if any, should the city play in that. What types of things can we do? And then the enforcement and the regulation will require resources, meaning money, for bylaw officers to be able to do that. One could argue that the SPCA and other animal control agencies are sufficient to carry out that function and no further regulation needs to be done by the city. Until we actually go out there and see what the full range is, there could be just a simple prohibition on a few things and they have to prove that they didn't get it from a mill. But it will take quite a bit of work to come up with what you can do and what you can't and what will the costs be associated with it. If I were to give a recommendation, I would stick with the status quo and not venture into this area.
Thank you. Councilor Bestwick.
Thank you. Well, I don't understand what this motion says. For me, this number 1 says number 2. And number 2 says number 1. So number 1 says that council regulate the sale of puppies, kittens, and rabbits in storefronts and direct staff to amend the animal control bylaw with specific conditions and requirements for stores to carry puppies and kittens, which you've just explained. Now, if we approve this, you'll go back and figure out what that means. Correct. So didn't we, in June of 2017, ask for staff to come back with recommendations on banning puppies, kittens, and rabbits, or not? It wasn't, we're going to come back to you and say, we're going to come back to you after you tell us to go away and come back again. So this motion and direct staff to amend the animal control bylaw, which today the animal control bylaw doesn't have any specific conditions and requirements. So I would have hoped that you would have come back, or somebody would have come back in a report, here's the specific conditions and requirements that we're recommending for council to deliberate on in order to determine whether you'd like to ban kittens, puppies, and rabbits from storefronts. And then so I'm going to, by approving this, I'm going to send you away to do what we asked you to do in June. So it makes this doesn't make any sense to me. Because if you come back in 6 more months and say, well, here's the specific conditions and requirements, well, I don't know why we couldn't have done that in the last 6 months. I won't be supporting the motion that's in front of us, and because I don't think that it tells me anything. And based on the information that has been provided by reviewing this subject matter throughout the province, it would suggest that we may wish to consider option 3. So I won't be supporting this motion.
So the BC SPCA has a letter in it, and it has a decent analysis of this challenge, and it has options 1 on 2. They recommend option 1, and they're supporting a ban on the sale of puppies, kittens, and rabbits in pet stores following the City of New Westminster. And they give some context to that. And then they give you an option 2, whether or not this is correct, though less likely to have public acceptability with Nanaimo residents. The city could adopt a bylaw regarding animal care businesses without any specific ban in regard to puppies, kittens, and rabbits. This would still need to ensure adequate enforcement through trained, licensed bylaw office enforcement staff and established in partnership with the BC SPCA animal protections officers where concerns about distress arise. I think in both circumstances, it's an investment in bylaw enforcement training and making sure that the bylaw you're adopting meets your needs. I would recommend today that you take a look at, if you're, well, I don't know what I'm going to recommend. There's a lot involved in taking on BC SPCA's suggestion. It's quite an exhaustive list and would require a dedication of resources to be able to police and enforce this. So the recommendation may be to regulate it in another way that is not quite as intrusive.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. The difference between the option number 1 and option number 2 is regulation. Option number 1 says that council regulate the sale. And the status quo is that council not support the regulation. So clearly the difference is regulation. This doesn't tell us what the regulations will be, and I would assume they would come back. We would give the direction on that sort of primary fundamental question, do you want to regulate or not? We say, yes, we do. Staff, I would expect, would come back and say, here is the regulations, and this is the expected cost of it. That's why I'm supporting this. I want to see the regulations. I think that an outright ban is not something that would be supported by our public, but I think people do want to protect animals, and I think they want to, but I think they also don't want to put businesses out of business. So we need to find that that bliss point, as we used to say sometimes, and find a way to regulate that protects the animals and protects the business interests.
Thank you.
Can I just jump in and say Councillor Brennan articulated that extremely well, and in terms of a process and what to do, and to just drop the thought that if council wanted to do other actions is maybe for FCM or AVICC or the different conferences also support the federal government taking more proactive steps in regulating and shutting down puppy mills and the types of industry that caused the concerns that brought this to the table.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I just want to say, when you read the summary of the option, that they say that the province may be moving forward in the future to provide a regulatory or licensing scheme on that. So that's something we may want to be cognizant of. My concern is if we regulate it too heavily, that you're just going to do more of a black market where you're going to have the Kijiji sales go up, the Craigslist sales go up. There's been no bad reports from this business owner. He seems to be very reputable. My concern is, I don't want to see it over-regulated because people do want to get bigger dogs and smaller dogs, which quite often don't end up in the SPCA. So I think the SPCA does have rules in place, and there is laws in place to deal with the issues if there is a problem with the sale of pets. So the only thing that I can recall from the last ones, we talked about that perhaps that one of the recommendations would be that bylaws would go in to see where the pups were purchased from, and it would be done just by a bylaw so that we could confirm that it was a reputable breeder. So I would support regulation, but I'm concerned about it being over-regulated. I would not support a ban. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. I will support the option number 1, which is on the table, and I think Councillor Brennan expressed my thoughts better than I can. But to me, it's a good compromise. I want to see animals protected. I'm not ready at this point to support a ban totally. I need more evidence that that was required before I did that. But I also don't think that we should do nothing and not be involved in the sale of animals in our city. And I think a bylaw to regulate within reason is appropriate, and we can see what is included in that bylaw as it comes forward. But I think the city does have a role in regulating safety of animals within our jurisdiction. So I will support option number 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. Just some thoughts on some of these and my thoughts. I actually support the ban. I support option number 3. I don't want to put a store owner out of business. So something with a grace period on that would be good. I think we need to move in the right direction. I don't want any other, if we set this up, I don't want any other pet stores setting up shop, even if we have now these bylaws in place. So if we go with option number 1, the owner says, you know, 40% of his revenue is from puppies. Well, if another puppy store opened up, that means he's going to lose, what, half? If another one decides to come up, maybe he'll lose more. So number 1 isn't really an option for me, because it's either we're going to save this business because you're just going to implement more competition for them via this option. Now other pet stores are going to say, hey, Nanaimo's open for business for us to sell pets. Let's go there. So that will affect his bottom line either way, because then we've just, you know, it's been in the gray area right now. Nobody's willing to come set up shop because we actually don't have a bylaw. And if we actually implement a bylaw, they might come. So I don't really support that. What I like in number 2, it says, it appears though the province may be moving forward in the future to provide either a regulatory licensing scheme or a combination of both to identify responsible and irresponsible breeders. The city may wish to consider suspending any further action pending potential actions by the province. I would like to actually put that into number 3 in reverse sense and saying that we might relook at this again after the province comes up with their plan. At that point, we can ban anybody else that wants to come into business in our town, because that's what I'm concerned about. Giving Paws and Jaws a grace period of 6 months or a year to adjust his business model to compensate for what's coming, or hold out for these rules that might come from the province, that we could have some teeth in that way. His vested interest will be protected at this point, and we might have some clarity from the province that we can move forward with regulation with the SPCA in concurrence. So I won't support number 1. I won't support number 2, and I'll support number 3 on different conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. I think it seems like we have to make legislation to protect animals, which I'm still adamant that exotic animals have to be included. So we're either making legislation today, or not today, but going to have the conversation, is it for the animals or is it for businesses present or future? To me, this conversation about protecting animals in a proper manner, the sale of animals. So therefore, I will be leaning towards option 3 till I know how we're going to regulate and make sure these animals are in a safe manner, not from puppy mills. And it's not just to be told, oh, they're not from puppy mills. I got to take that like that's guaranteed. Till we have fact, I'd rather play it safe in that route to all species and all animals we have touched on. So I want to make policy around the betterment and the safety, ensuring around puppies, kittens, rabbits, and exotic animals than present or future store owners. Because that's the subject at hand here, I hope, is the actual animals and not the other. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
I'm not willing to support any of these at this point in time. The closest I could come to supporting one is the status quo and cross out rabbits, because rabbits are a huge issue in the city of Nanaimo. So if we could ban the sale of rabbits, I think that would go a long way. I can't support the ban on the sale of puppies, kittens, and rabbits, total ban. And that is because I'm looking at the betterment of the animals. Paws and Jaws is reputable. They look at the owners where they purchase the animals. eBay is not reputable. Kijiji is not reputable. Craigslist is not reputable. And a ban on sale of puppies and kittens will not stop Kijiji and Craigslist from selling those puppies and kittens. And we do not know where they're coming from. So if someone wants to get a pet and we ban them, they're going to go to that avenue to get dogs and cats, kittens and puppies. They may go to their neighbor to get kittens and puppies because, wait a minute, I'm a poor person. I may not neuter my dog or cat or spay my dog or cat because, hey, I can make some money off of these. And then, of course, who knows if I'm reputable or not. So I can't support the outright ban on the sales of these because it would be the sales would be taken up by other people we have less control on. So at this point, I'm not willing to support 1, 2, or 3.
Thank you. Again,
I know.
I'd like to hold you to the end.
Pertinent information, though. We're only looking at paws and jaws, but Catnap is a rescue organization for cats, and Bosley's and PetSmart make those kittens available through their stores. So if you were to do a ban on animals, some of the rescue organizations that save them from being euthanized wouldn't be able to put their cats into the different stores. So that would be probably an unintended consequence of going on an outright ban right now. And I'm going to be honest, we could put something different in front of you if we took this report away and came back. Or we just go with one. But just understanding that would have the effect on some of the charitable organizations that save animals' lives.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Well, I still prefer number 1 because it puts us on the track of regulating sales and then approving the regulations. I would like, and I imagine we all have the opportunity for this, I would like to take, I'm not sure how the best way to do this would be to remove rabbits from the motion, so that it would be regulating the sales of puppies and kittens, or simply in the regulations ban rabbits. But I think, if you've got a string and a noose, you can get yourself a rabbit. You don't have to go very far. A string and a noose. You can get a rabbit, right? It's not going to be that hard. Just walk up to one at VIU and pick it up. Put it in your car. So, here what I'm looking at is puppies and kittens and hoping that we ban rabbits, and I think that can be done by regulation. And beyond that, there may be conversations down the road. And I think that sale of exotic animals is regulated provincially anyway, but we might just ask informally that our staff look at that when they're developing these regulations.
Okay, thank you. Now 3 more. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. I'll try to be as quick as I possibly can, but we're talking about us regulating or providing oversight or regulating the sales. How are we going to do that? On a complaint basis? On a video cam? On how much you're allowed to sell a purebred for or not? Or how are we going to regulate this? How many other stores on Vancouver Island sell cats and dogs in a mall? How many other? 2. So this, and becoming fewer and fewer. How many in the province? So the report to me would tell me that on Vancouver Island, there's 2 stores that sell pets currently. In British Columbia, there's 9. In the last year, there's been 30 that have closed because of city municipalities' regulations. Whatever the number is. So, but we're going to regulate. That's like saying we're going to regulate the Old City quarter on shoes sales for men and women. We're going to do that. So I don't know how we're going to have specific conditions. What would that look like? Specific conditions and requirements. What would those be? So therein lies why the stores are being closed down provincially. Because how do you do that? And if people wonder where to go buy their dog or cat, try the SPCA. And can we control Kijiji and... No. On everything. On your garage sale that's illegal. Maybe. Depending on what you're selling. So... This to me is a yes or no. And if you want to add reptiles and cockatoos and whatever else, then that's a different conversation. So my position through the debate hasn't changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hung.
Thank you. Just to follow up on some stuff from Councillor Fuller. Craigslist and Kijiji ban the sale of animals already. So you can actually buy them on there according to the SPCA's information. So you actually can't go to Kijiji to find an animal to buy it. Rescues, you can get them for free, but as a retail sales, they don't allow that on some of the things. The other one is, number one, kind of what Ms. Samara mentioned that everybody's missing the boat on. Regulate kittens and rabbits in storefronts. So now we have to regulate Bosley's and the other places because they actually have pets that are rescues. So this doesn't exclude rescues. Nowhere does this thing say rescues are excluded. So now we're doing a lot more work. So I don't think this is factually correct. I think we need to be more specific. I like to talk about retail sales is something I want to support. Like option number 3 is what I support. The ban the outright sale of retail sales of puppies. I still want, if Mr. Bender wants to sell rescues or help catnap and help the SPCA with the dogs and everything else that we have, I don't want to limit him from not being able to do that. So some of these still need to rework, but like again, I won't support 1. If we ever get to 3, then I don't like the wording of 3 either, so I would change that as well. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not seeing that I'm sensing that there's going to be any change in anyone's vote. So I'd like to call the question.
Just one quick point.
Do you believe that your one quick point will alter the direction of this vote?
It needs to be said.
It'll alter his thought.
It needs to be said. It's quick. It'll take me about 5 seconds, longer than debating whether.
You're on.
Tika registered rare chocolate point Himalayan, $300, 6 hours ago, Victoria, Kijiji.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to call the question. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Okay. All those opposed? Show Councillors Fuller, Kep, Bestwick, Hong, Yocum opposed. Motion fails. Council, do you have any alternate direction for our staff?
Number 3, with a transition for 6 months to be effective on June 1st, 2018.
Thank you. Councillor is moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Hong. Discussion. Councillor Armstrong.
I guess one of the questions that I would have that, obviously law is going to have to determine it, but the SPCA requires a certain amount of dollars to get one of those pets. So is that now technically a sale from the SPCA? So that's going to have to be addressed as well, if we're going to do that, because you know, to get, you have to pay for Spain, you have to pay for this, you have to pay for that. So technically that could be considered a sale for purchase, or purchase for whatever. You know what I mean? It's a possible argument. So then now you've eliminated the SPCA from also, anytime money exchanges hands, that's considered a sale. So I think that's something that you're going to have to look at if we're going to pass this ban. That means that they can't charge anything, period, for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I did mention that point on number 3. Like I said, I won't support it the way it's written. I'm more interested in the word of retail sales, where either represents not rescues. So if the animal is from a registered rescue, catnap, SPCA, yes, they do those things. They spade them, they neuter them, they give them meds. And of course, they have to make some money for offset some of their costs and the time that they put into it. I get that. I'm not trying to stop those. I want to stop the retail sales of these from puppy breeders that we don't know where they're coming from. So that's where I need some amendment on this when we get to the point, I guess, for the amendments. Because, like I said, this wasn't very clear, option number 3. I get the gist of option 3, but it's missing wording. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gurry?
Thank you, Worship. I was just further to Councillor Hong's words. I was thinking maybe registered rescues, not-for-profit organizations, volunteer organizations for rescuing of animals. We could add that into the option, so it excludes registered rescues or not-for-profit organizations. I think that
miss out on some of the exemptions. If there's a harm you want to prevent, maybe your motion should be the City of Nanaimo bans the sale of rabbits and animals from puppy mills. If that's what you're trying to stop, and the puppy mill people are the ones, maybe that ban would be more appropriate. And then, because not all nonprofits will be registered, and then we're going to start getting into a dust-up. If your cat has a litter and you don't want to have them euthanized and you want to take them somewhere, are you going to qualify for that exemption, or are all those cats going to die? And I'm actually a dog person, but I'm just giving you examples of what could happen.
Thank you. Councillor Beswick.
Well, this is really about retail commercial outlets. That's what this is really about. So the council support the ban of sale of puppies, kittens, and rabbits in retail outlets. I don't read anywhere in here that says catnap, that says rescue dogs can't be taken to the SPCA, or a picture of the dog or cat is at these stores today, and they're available, but they just aren't here. They're under a different care in a different place, and that's the SPCA. I think we're making this so much bigger than it needs to be. This is puppies, kittens, rabbits, retail stores, period. I don't understand the complications of the Catnap Society rescuing cats and taking them to the SPCA and making them available for people to come and take them off their hands. I think we're complicating it.
They're actually sold at retail stores, Bosley's and PetSmart. So it's not just SPCA.
Fair enough. So when I go to Bosley's to buy all dog and cat food, I haven't seen a live animal there yet. I've been going there for 10 years. Well, I've been going there for 10 years. I haven't seen a live animal. I'll go by tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and see what's there. That's not their primary business.
Can we continue with the debate, please? So, next speaker, Councillor Brennan.
I can't support the ban because it's too unwieldy. I mean, I think the CAO and Councillor Armstrong have brought up those instances where, you know, it's an anomaly, it's difficult to capture, and I simply am not interested in interfering with a business that has not caused the city or the animals any problems. And to me, it's kind of high-handed to say, well, I don't really know anything about retail sales for pets and pet supplies and stuff, but I figured 6 months is good enough. You can figure out a new plan. It's extremely high-handed on our part. Whereas we could make regulations which wouldn't be that hard. It says here that the bylaw should focus on care and treatment of animals, as well as the level of inspection required, as well as documentation provided as to where the pets are being sourced. These are not onerous tasks. This is not an onerous regulation to implement. And yes, indeed, it will probably cost us a bit of more money to follow up on our inspections and make sure that they're doing what we want them to do. But really, if we're concerned about animals, that shouldn't be the defining reason why we make a yes or no on things. But to interfere with a person who's making a living in our city, is not harming animals, is not really sticking his head up above the crowd and doing anything. He's been caught up in a movement, but it's not a movement that's really arisen out of the circumstances here in Nanaimo. Before I would want to go down the road of a ban, I'd want to know that the circumstances arose here. And we have no evidence of that. In fact, we actually have evidence against that. So I'm just not going to participate in something that would interfere with someone's ability to make a living.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
For me, it would be interfering with someone's ability to make a living with certain things, not just puppies and pet mills, or puppies and cats and puppy mills and rabbits, and let's go up to VIU and collect rabbits. I like that idea because we could feed them to the hungry in Nanaimo. So we could do that. That'll take care of some of the rabbits. Bylaw 3 does not say specifically retail outlets, or the option 3, I should say. It says that council support the outright ban of sales of puppies, kittens, and rabbits, and allow the continuation of sale of pets with requirements as per the bylaw amendment. I don't see a bylaw amendment, so how can I approve something without knowing what the amendment is? It is an outright ban on the sale of puppies, kittens, and rabbits. Ban rabbits. If you ban the outright sale, it will happen online, and you have no guarantees of what's going to happen. And they can be far cheaper doing it that way than coming through a pet store with a lot of integrity. And yes, not all pet stores have that level of integrity. But that would be up to us to monitor that, not the sale of puppies and cats.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I would not support a ban. I think one of the purposes that the SPCA came forward was to stop the sale from puppy mills, and I think that was one of the recommendations that, again, as I stated before, that we would have that in the regulations. I believe if we ban the sales, that puppy mill sales will go up considerably. As Councillor Fuller said, you're going to have more and more people buying off Kijiji. You're going to have more seniors being ripped off, which we've seen before from that. And I would like to know what's happening in the other communities that have banned the sales, because my understanding is that the sales of illegal animals and animals that aren't in good condition has risen dramatically because they don't have the availability of buying from a reputable pet store. And secondly, we have to, again, the wording's going to have to be there, because would you consider somebody that's selling, a high-end breed from their home or from their business? That's a retail, technically, store. So would that ban apply there? So I think we have to really look at all that. Like for me, I mean, the whole purpose from the SPCA, from what I read, was that they were concerned about the number of puppy mills operating, and the purpose of the bylaw would be to ensure that the puppies are coming from reputable breeders, they're looked after, and that there could be frequent inspections or whatever. So I cannot support a ban.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. I might at some point support a total ban. I don't think I'm prepared to at this point, because I don't feel I have enough information on the ramifications. And I'd also like to make the point that this is not about any specific store. I know that there is only basically one store in Nanaimo, but I think this is a philosophical discussion. Do we want to regulate the sale of puppies, kittens, and rabbits? Apparently not. We voted that down. Do we want to outright ban them? Well, the SPCA recommendation was to ban them from sale in pet stores, meaning retail outlets. That's something we might want to look at. I would be very interested to know, as I think Councillor Armstrong suggested, what's been the result in a place like New Westminster, which has proceeded down this road. Has it been effective? What have been the results? So personally, I would like to see, if we're going to contemplate debating a ban on the sale of puppies, kittens, and rabbits, I would like to see this go back to staff to come to us with a more fulsome report on just that topic. Pros and cons, how's it going to affect business, what would be a reasonable phase-in time if we did proceed, has it achieved its effect of protecting animals, stopping the sale of puppy mill pets, and so on. So I'm not comfortable supporting a ban at this point. If I got more information that I could base my decision on, possibly. So I don't know what the process is. Is it appropriate to move a referral back to staff, Your Worship?
Certainly can.
Then, if I may, that's what I would like to do.
Okay. Motion to refer back to staff for further information on the effectiveness of the current bans in other municipalities. Ms. Curry?
You're aware that there is already a motion on the floor, but this is a motion to refer, so that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you. On the referral, all those in favor? Opposed? There's no one opposed. It's been referred. Let the record show Councillor Bestwick is opposed. Motion passes. Next item. Next item. Motion re downtown disorder to be introduced by Councillor Brennan.
I'm going to withdraw this motion because I'm satisfied with the report that we got. I'd like to work with that report until such time as we decide we need something beyond that. So I am not going to make that motion.
Okay, thank you. So, next item. Delegation from Joy Adam Bauer, President of Nanaimo Old City Association. Good evening.
Clicker from somebody that I can do my slides?
It's right beside you. He's on his way.
Sneaking up on your left.
Yeah, I'm checking with them.
Good evening.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. I am Joy Adams Bauer, President of the Nanaimo Old City Association, fondly known as NOCA. I am joined by members of our association who serve on our 388 working group. It is my pleasure to have this opportunity to share with you this evening the views of Old City residents regarding the potential redevelopment of the old hospital site at 388 McCleary Street. In the weeks and months ahead, we are looking forward to continued discussions with City staff, City Council, Old City residents, and any developers who come forward with an interest in the site. We are here to facilitate a discussion before a development application is submitted for 388 McCleary Street. Residents of the Old City have a very keen interest in this site. Our active neighborhood association has been working on this issue for almost 10 months. We wanted to act proactively and began talking with people in the neighborhood and with Chartwell Retirement Residences, the current owner of the site, before any major redevelopment began. This site has major city-scale significance. In March of this year, we held a neighborhood information meeting to discuss the future of the property and its heritage value. Over 70 people attended. Concerns were raised at that time about security of the buildings once vacated, squatters, traffic issues with any new development, and concerns that any new development fit with the existing character of the surrounding neighborhood. In May, we held a visioning workshop to seek community input on the future of the site. Over 50 people attended. They shared their ideas using a workbook. Input was provided on a number of topics, including rezoning, development, and heritage. The workshop was facilitated by Mark Holland, urban planner and resident of the Old City, and city heritage planner Chris Schulberg. We plan to hold additional neighborhood meetings in the new year. A report which summarized the feedback we received was produced in July and sent to City Council in August. At that time, you will recall, Council was voting on the request for a demolition permit for the buildings on the site. As you know, demolition began in the fall and is now complete. I'd like to use the next few minutes to summarize some of our findings from the community meetings we have held to date. While the official community plan and Old City Neighborhood Concept Plan are in place, some residents feel strongly the plans should not be changed, while others are open to minor changes in residential uses, providing modifications are consistent with the OCP and with the spirit of the Old City Neighborhood Concept Plan. Mixed housing types, including seniors housing, single family, townhouses, and condominiums, are what residents have envisioned for the site. We support mixed tenure, both ownership and rental, and some affordable housing. We believe diversity is good. We hope you share that vision with us as this land use issue continues to unfold. Our public meetings found nearly unanimous support for heritage-inspired building designs. We'd also like to see any new development with townhouse-like entrances at the street level, similar to the townhouses currently being built along Dufferin Crescent. Objectives of the old city neighborhood concept plan limit new multifamily and commercial buildings to a maximum of 3 stories in order to maintain public ocean views and keep the buildings in scale with historic development. However, there is some support for buildings beyond current height restriction, but only if the design is excellent and present view corridors to the harbor are maintained from McCleary Street. Higher buildings should be set back from the street. Again, diversity is good. Parking should be located on the site, underground where possible, as there are very real concerns about negative parking impacts from any new development. The neighborhood is also interested in any development providing new amenities to the community, including some affordable housing, a community meeting space, a small cafe, or use of an exercise or yoga space in the new development. To conclude, it's important to us that any new development respect and reflect the nature of our neighborhood. The Old City neighborhood is a complex and diverse area. We have low-cost homes, rental properties, highly desirable renovated heritage homes, mature green spaces, and a strong sense of community. It's a unique neighborhood, Nanaimo's first. We were pleased that the one developer who has expressed an interest in the site so far contacted NOCA this past October and invited residents of the Old City to a come-and-go gathering to see, hear, and comment on a preliminary proposal for the site. We are looking ahead to work collaboratively with the city and any developer who comes forward on an approach that honors existing visions and plans, which reflect a healthy, working relationship with residents of the Old City. We hope that a development that fits within the context and historic character of this unique neighborhood in our city is what the Nanaimo Old City Association and the City of Nanaimo will be working together to create. In the months ahead, we plan to hold more community engagement meetings to seek feedback on any proposals that may come forward. Development of this site is a great opportunity for all parties. We are excited, and we want to remind you that NOCA supports a mixed tenure of housing, both ownership and rental. Thank you for your time. And if there are any questions, the members of our working group will be pleased to answer them.
Thank you. I can't see any questions at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Curry. Sorry.
Thank you, Worship. I was just going to note that Mr. McGrath was to speak to Councillor Brennan's motion, but normally when there is an item pulled from the agenda, the delegation is pulled, but I just want to leave it up to council to determine if he should speak or not.
Thank you. So there was a motion that was to be coming forward, and it's been withdrawn from the agenda. So there's really, in my view, nothing to speak to. Okay, thank you. Next item. Mr. Holden Southward to speak regarding fiscal responsibility.
Hello, thank you for having me. You want
Good
my
evening,
address?
sir.
What was that?
Good evening.
Good evening. Did you want my address?
Yes, please.
Okay, 848 Inez Place, Nanaimo, BC.
Thank you.
Okay, so the reason why I put this little presentation together, it's actually just a bunch of notes about the importance of fiscal responsibility, is that we need to, I think a lot of the city perhaps needs a little reminder of the real actuality of what's going out there with the huge debt burdens in societies across Western civilization. I mean, we have to reflect back or look at what's happening in Illinois, where they're taxing the people so much that basically they're fleeing. There was no the unions and that there was no real desire to actually limit taxes, and just the same thing that's happening, the same drama in Greece, where it's actually almost a curse to actually inherit a home because taxes on land are so much. But this sort of thing happens over time, and you don't realize it. You don't really realize the conditions that the next generations are in, the predicament. So I'll just kind of go over this, tax, I'll just read from the notes to make it quick here. Tax revenue collected should not be in any way be considered a sign of the health of the local economy. If there is a bounty one year, the funds should be set aside for reserve rather than being used as a green light for non-essential expensive projects such as concrete walk paths that compromise pristine beauty and ecosystems of our beaches. The debt load and income levels of the local residents must always be a first consideration before any capital projects are drafted. A study of the overall health of the private sector besides their incomes must be ongoing. An income may look good on the outside, but if that income is based on, for example, a father who has to work out of province in Alberta for his family on a long-term basis, that should not be counted. Economically, Nanaimo is still much of a welfare state, and its only main boom is housing because of the overflow from Vancouver and other areas, and it's a shopping depot for other local areas. In Nanaimo, house prices are huge, rents are huge. The city must be aware that the next generations are in a very difficult predicament, and it's only going to get worse. The more city taxes go up, the more young families are forced to go into debt in the Western world, from the government to the private sector. I think I just skipped something there, but anyway, and this is going to be the number one reason why Western societies will crash. And I'll just go here. There's a little pamphlet I got from the city here. It's State of the Child. I'll just make it simple. I'll go right to this. They talk about income for families. Okay, they say the average income for a family is two-parent income is $79,000. A one-parent is the average they say is $46,000. And meanwhile, poverty rates have gone up, though they say the income has gone up. And of course, read over here to housing. Housing costs continue to rise. The average sale price for a single-family residential house was almost $450,000 in 2016, and 14% increase from 2015. That's not good news for me. I own a house. I almost have no debt. Because I did in 2002. I built it myself. I have no satisfaction in that because I think 7 generations ahead. It's nuts. The inflation, all this inflation the banks are creating through our combined competitiveness against each other without any controls. I mean, foreigners come over and buy. People can own 10 homes. And it's not a good thing for the next generation. And so it's, like I bought my lot, cash, $46,000, doing shitty work like roofing and stuff like that in 2002. Just now, a couple of months ago or a half year ago, a guy across bought a lot smaller than mine for $250,000. I mean, that's like 5.5 times. All that inflation is coming down. It comes down slowly, first through the top. Of course, the government always wants to keep their wages up, keep up with the cost inflation and all the other elements, the hydro, and then it starts coming down to the local level in just the basic products you buy. And sometimes they're just not going to be there in the future because the companies can't keep on selling stuff to people that don't have enough money. Those people have the garages full of stuff they've accumulated over 30 years. They don't need any more stuff, plus they have too much debt. We're coming to, I believe, a great change, and we must be prepared. And I'll just keep on going here. Average incomes, we have to look at statistics, and they can be misleading. Average incomes and statistics creates a distorted picture in the knowledge that a small percentage of people are making millions, and some, like at City Hall, are making quite a bit. We'll get into that right now. These statistics need to be broken down further to the most common income in each primary sector and the percentage of people employed in each sector. If you left out the top 5% of the income earners from a general survey for statistics, you would likely find a very different number. The bottom 95% for average family incomes, two family incomes, would be approximately $60,000, not almost $80,000. That's just a rough estimate, but I'm just saying, you keep out the 5%, that's not really, so it's more fair. And a lone parent average income would be $30,000. A lot of people find that they feel lucky if they have a job making $30,000. You can't get that at Walmart. You know what I mean? All these, there's a whole lot of low-income people in Nanaimo. And it shouldn't be, when you mix just a blanket statistic with the very top, it skews reality. So anyway, so another thing too is people, you know, of course, people at top always get the biggest percentage in raises. So people may have not got 14% raises since 2011 on average. I don't think so. Trying to make your community seem more rosy could be a sign of hidden agendas. This is kind of like when it comes to developments, or let's say spending $40 million or $80 million for additional seawalks, which we already have enough. And people aren't coming to Nanaimo to walk up to Bowen Park from an extended seawalk that goes up Mill Stream Park. They're coming to Nanaimo to go see Cathedral Grove. So I think we have enough seawalls. And so anyway, so that when I'm talking about hidden agendas, and it's almost impossible to stop, but the hidden agenda obviously is dressing up the city in some ways for sale in the world market, and that should not be the city's job or concern. Attracting tourism for the people here. You have to serve the people here first, not the people that might come, or trying just using tax money. I mean, I'm not blaming you, but I'm saying you have to make sure that it's for the benefit of the people living here right now. Okay, and we can, using taxpayer monies to dress up the town with, well, I already went through that. I'll just go to number 3, get this over with for you guys. Okay, it is not the city's business to use taxpayer money for any purposes beyond the well-being of the current residents. Its projects that benefit one region of the city may not benefit the others, and the costs must be weighed out. Large capital projects that potentially benefit the whole, such as the Aquatic Center, which is a good decision, still must be under referendum. Attracting tourism is a benefit and may be presumed downtown is the focal point of the city, since people have no choice but to pass through Nanaimo when visiting the island. Open houses for proposed major projects is good, but one must learn from past experience of that proposed event center, I think that was called. It had been said, everybody liked it, and it was a go for sure. And then the referendum came around, and 80% voted it down. Now, maybe 15 years ago, it may have passed, but times have changed. People are scared.
You have 1 minute, sir.
Yeah, so, and anything else really? Okay, people are scared, stressed, and happy. More than ever, the city must learn to be the servant of the whole community, not just a special interest. I call the city to halt all major projects and focus in on lowering taxes immediately. I call the city to stop tearing down public assets, whether it be municipal or provincially owned. The old Malaspina Hospital and addition would have made a perfect emergency shelter, hospital and treatment center in future challenges, which may very well come. It was said that I was sad to see it torn down, but it's just part of living in more of a corporate colony. Anyway, we must begin to make that paradigm shift and put forth measures aggressively to become agriculturally and economically self-reliant. It is going to be the future, whether you like it or not. So this is where we're coming to. Inflation is coming, and it's coming heavy.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Councillor Kipp.
Thank you. Excuse me. I never thought that my house would be worth what it was worth when I bought it 35 years ago. And it's amazing. And of course, I think people actually benefit from that, the ones that own a house, but it makes it harder for the next generation, like you say. The hospital I was born in, at a time when I was with a family, I worked on the gardens, and I was sad to see it get tore down, but it's part of it. It's sad enough we pull all our buildings down. What I do want to talk about is the factor you used on the event center. I like the event center. I like seeing kids get to be hockey players. I like to see kids to be lacrosse players. I like to see circuses. I like to see music. And if you don't have those type of venues, no one's going to see those things. I understand our costs are expensive, but you said 80% of Nanaimo voted against it. It's not true.
That's what I read in the paper.
Yeah.
Well, not, we'd say statistics, sorry if you use a false statistic. Maybe 50% voted, but 80% have voted.
34% voted. 66% of the public didn't care about it.
Yeah.
Didn't even care, and they're paying taxes. A lot of them are paying taxes. The people that are eligible to vote are not all taxpayers, but some of them pay taxes. So 66% didn't even show up. Our last 4 elections, 10% showed up for the last by-election. Last by-election before that was 10%, and 34% over our last three elections. So 27% of our population came out and voted against the event center, not 80% of the community.
Yeah.
It's really pumped people up, that big 80% thing.
Well, I know. I did read it. I did read it in the paper. Maybe
but
they.
The paper's
just,
a joke.
Yeah.
In my mind, paper's a joke. So get the facts right. It's 27% of the population voted against it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty sad that many turned out, and that's all. And the people who voted against it they're just chewing that sugar cane, saying it's 80%, but it's not right. So they even inflated it so badly just to win. So everybody inflates everything.
Yeah. But anyway, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying if it was 15 years...
Gentlemen, 15, no more debate.
Yeah,
no more
15.
Debate. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you.
Next delegation from Dennis Hughes, Carilli Park, and Paul Manley to speak regarding placing a 10-cent levy on all single-use plastic bags.
Good evening, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak about this important topic, which are the single-use plastic bag. My name is Dennis Hughes. This is Carilli Park. And this is Paul Manley. About a year ago, we started to gather information about single-use bags, plastic or paper bags, in BC, in Canada, and around the world. And we put together a presentation for you tonight, a PowerPoint presentation. It's going to summarize what we found and some suggestions. And Carilli will start.
Thank you, Denis, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Carilli Park, and as Denis mentioned, we're going to be speaking about a proposal to reduce or ideally eliminate single-use grocery bags in Nanaimo. So our proposal is that for all grocery stores in Nanaimo should either charge a levy of 10 cents per grocery bag on all single-use plastic or paper bags, or ideally ban them altogether. So just a bit of background. So this is data from 2012. In that year, Canadians used more than 2.9 billion plastic bags. So that's more than 200 bags per person per year. And so in the diagram, each icon represents 10 million plastic bags. So that's quite a large number. A little bit more data about what's going on in Canada and around the world. And there's a handout that contains more information on this. There are 6 Canadian cities that have banned plastic bags. Data suggests that regions that have introduced a levy on plastic bags have seen up to a 90% reduction in use in the first year. And there are a number of countries throughout the world who have either banned, put a tax or a levy on plastic or paper grocery bags. And the partial ban refers to if the whole country hasn't instituted the ban, but it's been done on a provincial or state or municipal level. And this is just a map to sort of further illustrate that. So the green shaded areas are those that have implemented a ban. The yellow color is the implementation of a tax. And purple is if there's been a partial tax or ban. So areas in Canada would include Alberta, Manitoba, and Quebec. But again, that's a partial tax or ban. So looking at what's happening in Nanaimo in terms of how the bags are dispensed, Country Grocer, 49th Parallel, and Quality Foods, as well as Fairway, give away both paper and plastic bags. Superstore charges 5 cents and they only dispense plastic bags. Thrifty Foods is only paper and they also charge 5 cents. Save-On charges a little bit more for paper and a little bit less for plastic. And Costco's on that list, although of course they're a little bit different, but no bags from them. In terms of what we've done, this past summer, we contacted all the major grocery store chains, either by phone or email, and or in person, and spoke with them about what their attitude would be towards instituting a ban or a levy. And out of all of the major chains, only the 49th Parallel was willing to discuss it with us, and it was just being open to discussion. And at this point, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Paul Manley.
All right, I'm Paul Manley, 61 Garner Crescent in Nanaimo. So only 5% of plastic bags in the United States are recycled, and I imagine that the statistic in Canada is similarly pathetic. It takes about 300 years or longer for these bags to biodegrade. They break down into toxic particles and they contaminate soil and water. They enter the food chain, and when animals accidentally ingest them, they become sick and often die, and work their way up the food chain, towards us. Paper versus plastic. Making paper bags requires 5 times more water, 3 times more greenhouse gas than plastic bags, so they're not necessarily the solution to the problem. And this is a picture from the CVRD bins. Nobody wants plastic bags. Nobody's interested in recycling, and we don't have them in our recycling bins here in Nanaimo. And this is a picture from Nanaimo where no plastic bags is also posted on recycling. So it's time for action. Every day more plastic is disposed in the environment. Grocery stores in Nanaimo give away approximately 45,000 bags per day, and that's based on the statistics for the number of bags that are passed out in Canada per person, about 200 bags per person. And if you average that out per day with the citizens of Nanaimo, that's about what we're looking at. Scientists predict that by 2050 there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. So right now it's about a 1-to-5 ratio, and 2050 we're going to be looking at 1-to-1. We've had a lot of discussion about animal welfare today. Here's a picture of a seal with a plastic bag on it. One of the most shocking things I'd seen traveling, I was working for the University of Belize, and I was going out to one of their pristine diving sites, and on my way out, I went through this huge, massive field of plastic that had washed down from rivers in Guatemala. And when I go to the Nanaimo River, I see similar kind of stuff. People dumping, cans and bottles and plastic bags. And just take your kayak out around the estuary and you find plastic bags stuck in trees and stumps and areas that have washed down river. This is the Nanaimo landfill. You can see there's a lot of plastic bags in there, a lot of shopping bags that are used for garbage or disposal. And there's more images, lots of plastic at the landfill. This is nearby the landfill where you can see some plastic has made it up into the trees, and they've got big fences up to try to stop this from happening, but as you know, plastic bags are light and blow around and end up in the environment all over the place. And here's a plastic bag on the roadside out near the dump too that had garbage in it. So placing a ban or a levy on single-use bags is a small but necessary step to protect the planet we live on. We live in a beautiful pristine place, and it's up to us to protect it. And I think that a levy is a really good start, and moving towards a ban and following the example of other cities in Canada would be a good finish. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're open to any questions you have.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
I'm curious as to why you only want to put a levy on single-use grocery bags. By their very nature, plastic bags are reusable. I would totally support just banning every frickin' plastic bag in the environment on the planet, because they are reusable. They're more reusable than paper bags. The only thing that's even better than that are the cloth bags you can get. And yeah, so a levy on single-use plastic grocery bags.
It's not just grocery bags, it's plastic bags.
So
Yeah.
garbage bags, Ziploc bags, Glad bags. I'm all for it. Let's do it.
What other municipalities have done, like Toronto, which you might have heard, they were planning to have a levy, then they moved into a ban and they canceled everything. Montreal will be having a ban on January 1st.
Yeah.
There's only 6 cities in the country that managed to have a ban. We would love to see a ban. That might take too long. But if you start with a levy, again, by reducing by 90% within the first few months, then you can implement a ban over the summer. So it's progressive. And if you want to go from grocery bag to all plastic bag, that's even better.
Yeah.
But what we read and we've learned is that if you try too hard, the hard road might not work right away.
Well, just as a follow-up for myself, since Thrifty started charging 5 cents for paper bags, I now use the heavier produce plastic bags, and then I get away with even paying 5 cents for a plastic bag, or 10 cents. So I'm still using a single-use bag, but I'm using it for more than one use. So, hence, I mean, it's a great idea, and yes, it would be a start. I've watched all the things. I saw the seal there. It's abhorrent, Let's ban those little things on 6-packs, those plastic things. I think they're even far worse than single-use plastic bags. Let's put a big levy on that. Thank you. I very much appreciate all the work you guys are doing on this, and I do support what you're saying.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this to us tonight. When you say a levy on single-use bags, do you mean that the store charges you 5 cents and the store keeps the money? Or are you suggesting a tax? Because levy implies tax to me, so not really sure.
Well, I'd like to see that money go into a fund that is used to reduce waste. But, there's different models for doing this. In some places, the levy is raised by grocery stores, and the grocery stores get to decide how that money is spent. But I think that it's, if we could put that into zero waste programs, that would be more valuable. But that's a decision, that's something that we would leave to city council to figure out.
I just wondered, because I don't think we have the authority to place a tax.
Yeah.
But we do, I think, because other cities are doing it, they're saying you have to charge for it or ban them altogether. I personally like the idea of starting with a charge, and then after people get used to it, because that's the whole, I don't think anybody purposefully doesn't bring their own bag. I think they just generally forget. And so this encourages people to take their own bag, and then you could move into the ban, because it wouldn't be such a sharp difference in the way people are behaving. So, like the idea, like that you sent it, my preference would be to start with a levy, meaning that the store
Collects a fee, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, thank you very much for coming and sharing that information. This is a topic that is of great interest to me, and I've done some reading on it already, and I certainly support what you're suggesting. It's interesting that that paper is not the answer, as a lot of people might think. And I really like your approach personally of suggesting a graduated approach, and the levy seems to be fairly effective in getting people's attention, whereas trying to come down hard with an outright ban would be unworkable and very, I think, unpopular. So I like your approach, and it's something that I would be willing to support. I know that other municipalities, such as Victoria and Saanich, have been actively investigating levies or a partial ban. And in the new year, I might well be prepared to request our staff look at what those municipalities have done and bring some information back to us. I'm not going to do that tonight because we're in budget right now and there's a lot on our staff's plate. But it's something that I would like to see us pursue, as I say, possibly in the new year. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Just want people to know that Nanaimo isn't all doom and gloom like what you show in the U.S., because I think we're doing a really good job. We're not the best in the world, but 2014 BC stats, about 520 kilograms of waste per person. In the RDN, we're at 347 a year. So, and I think at the RDN where waste is discussed, we have a target of 90% diversion. I don't know what that means yet, but apparently we're shooting for 109 kilograms a person by 2027. So plastics will make its way if we're ever going to reach this goal. I don't know if it's really up there for us to reach, but I think all of this process with levies and everything are going to move in that direction, just like the banning of pets and everything else. Like I said, some companies have started to charge. We didn't have to force them to do that. I think they did it out of seeing the need for making the environment a better place. And I think other grocery chains will start catching on. For us to talk about implementing a levy, I think it's beyond our scope of what we can do. I know that Councillor Bestwick has also put a notice of motion at the RDN for AVICC to ban plastic bags, period, if I'm not mistaken. I think we had that discussion. So that is on the books, to outright ban plastic. We will push that to the AVICC. So thank you for the information. I do value it and I see it. I don't think we need to waste our time right now talking about levies. I think there's other stuff we can be doing. And with the regional district and their solid waste plan is a very, very, leap forward. I won't even say it's a step forward. 90% diversion by 2027 is a huge leap. So that's where I wanted to say that we are doing something. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person in the queue is Ms. Sammer.
Just wanted to ask you about the mechanics. If we're a creature of statutes, so whatever the provincial government says a local government can do, that's the extent of our authorities. So the legislation in Ontario may be different, but could you give some examples in British Columbia of how that's doing and sort of the mechanisms they're doing it? Because I'm interested at what point is it, the mechanics, so at the point when I do have to go away and take a look at this, I know where to start.
In British Columbia, there's actually nothing that's been done so far. Victoria is talking about it. They've been discussing it for almost a year now.
Okay.
And what we found by the research we did is that that's what people do. They just discuss it all over. And again, keep in mind, 45,000 bags a day in Nanaimo. And this number is conservative. It's almost 49,000, actually, if you want to count everybody. So there's no history here. We don't have, so you could be a leader, one of the largest city that's actually done something, and you can be looked at as the leader. It's going to happen. And what we were discussing among the three of us is just like smoking indoor. This is going to happen eventually. There'll be no plastic bags. You can either wait or you can take action. And every day is costing the environment a lot. Yeah. But there's no documentation. Even in your research, I think you won't find anything about in BC. Sorry.
Thank you.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. 100% support banning of the use of plastic bags. I don't know how many more short story movies and things that we need to go observe with what's happening to our environment and wildlife and our fish habitat and everything else in order for us to wake up and go, okay, well, we should really try to stop this. Not unlike putting on a seatbelt with a shoulder harness. Okay, if you don't do it tomorrow, you get a $376 fine. How many warnings do you need? I'm not sure. How many things have to happen bad before you go, okay, I think I should probably put it on. Out of sight, out of mind. We live in the best place ever, and so we don't see it until we watch it on a movie or see whales ingesting these things and dying everywhere and so on and so forth. So I don't even know why we would want to have a gentle. We've been gentle. That's what we've been so far. So it is time to be a little bit more forward and brash and say, enough's enough. Stop it. I've been kind of on bans tonight. So I would probably say that the sooner that we can ban the use of plastic bags in Nanaimo, the better off our city would be. Thank you.
Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. Thank you for your guys' presentation. Do we have, so we have the, we could have the power to make a ban ourselves?
Yeah.
Jerry just said no, you guys said yeah. Who's right?
There's 6 states in Canada, so yes, it's been done before.
Ms. Samra, will you please answer that?
I don't know the answer. I have to take a look at our constating legislation, what authorities you've been given, and under what mechanism you could affect that outcome. It may not be called a levy, but it may be other ways of doing it.
I'm not interested in a levy. I'm interested in the future, and everyone who has kids and grandkids. And Councillor Bestwick hit it right on the nail. It was like, we've been pretty soft, and this is one of those things where I'd have no issue. I don't want to levy. I'd be more than willing to make a motion to support the ban of plastic, because $45,000 a day?
It's 49,000.
Wow. So who would it be inconvenience? A lot of things in life are inconvenience. You can't goof around your phone, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. So everything's inconvenience for a reason. Safety and betterment of society in the world. So I definitely, I'll wait till the call later with action from delegations, but I don't know why we wouldn't, or I don't know why we would be fear-based on banning plastics, because it's a no-brainer. That's my position. I look forward to conversation and seeing where we go with it, and we got to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any others. I don't see any other questions. I would like to ask, though. I'm really interested in this subject matter, and that's particularly from the litter and the efficiency of where, of folks that have done this, how it actually works. We, a number of years ago, we came out with deposits on bottles and cans, and it was an anti-litter campaign. And it's worked very, very well. The challenge is that in British Columbia, and it's British Columbia regulated, not just the city of Nanaimo, British Columbia wide, there's $10 to $15 million a year in unredeemed deposits. I'd surely love for communities at the grassroots level to be able to get their hands on some of that money. Imagine what we could do in Nanaimo if we qualified for $100,000 a year in zero waste funds. Imagine what we could do. Another one was, we've been told at the regional district level that there's no way for a regional district within the Local Government Act to make such a ban. Legislation doesn't allow it. So the other one is when you have a levy in a community like Nanaimo and everybody around you doesn't, how do you, is it a levy to discourage use, or is it a levy to try to clean them up? I would rather have some way of folks being able to go out and pick up a single bag and get 5 cents for it, get a nickel for it. Same thing as North Vancouver when they introduced, people laughed at them, but they introduced a resolution to UBCM to put a 5 cent per cigarette deposit. It was, again, an anti-littering program. Anybody who's been down to Parkshire Bay recently and walked along the seawall there, you'll see why we need something to clean up the cigarette butts. We need something to prevent the pollution with plastic bags. I'd like to see us go further. If we're going to ban them, then ban all plastic bag sales in Nanaimo.
I thought you were going to say ban cigarettes.
If you think about it, there's an industry out there. I mean, we put our garbage in plastic bags and we put it out to the curb. There's another big plastic bag out. That plastic bag is full of plastic bags that we've gone around our office and collected that had a couple of gum wrappers in it and a few other things, and the custodial staff take it out and put it into the plastic bag. I watched Edmonton, who are claiming that they've done this really great job of recycling and sorting, and I'm watching. They are encouraging you to go to the store and buy plastic bags that can now go in the waste stream. They don't allow you to use cans at the curb. You have to use a plastic bag. And you guys are on there's a real challenge here, and I'll tell you, at UBCM, I'd really support something that does two things. One, discourages use of not only the single use, but also of your inside, garbage bag at in your garbage pail, all of that stuff. But it has to be province-wide, in my view. Anyway, thank you for listening to that. Thank you very much. I don't see any other questions for you or comments. Thank you very much. Councillor Yoakum suggested that he may want to put forward a motion arising from the delegations. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I'll keep it really simple. And after hearing the presentation and realizing what's right for a while, and regardless what we're permitted to do or waiting on the larger communities at large, I believe we should take a bold move and show leadership on the subject. And therefore I'd like to make a motion that the city of Nanaimo bans the use of plastic bags in the city of Nanaimo. And I need some help wordsmithing it, but we know the intent. We just had a wonderful presentation. And I'm sure there'll be some fact checks, what we can do and whatnot, but I'd like to put it out there and make the motion and then make sure this comes to fruition. I don't think we have time to be waiting. I don't think we have time to be, I'm not sure if we're allowed to, because you know what? Let's just lead and we take the charge and maybe others will follow. But regardless, we got to do what's best for the future right now. Thank you. Thank you.
So you want to put the motion. Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. We now have a motion on the floor. Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. I was just going to second or suggest as well that when we're wordsmithing this, it would be something along the lines of direct staff to report back to council on legislation available to Nanaimo to ban the use of plastic bags in the city. I support the motion 100%, and so I'm quite comfortable. I'm quite comfortable with the motion. But if you come back and say, you know what, we don't have the legislative authority or powers to do that, so you can't do it, I'm fine with that too. But either way, I think this is a very important step in a right direction in the greater good of what it is that we're trying to accomplish. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
I agree with Councillor Beswick. This is an important step, but when it says ban the use of plastic bags, does that include Ziploc bags? Does that include garbage bags? Does that include every type of plastic bag available? That I would love to see, but I don't know if we can get away with that at this point. So I would really like to know exactly what it is we could do rather than go through a process that might fail. Let's do something. Have staff come back with what can we do that will actually have an impact on this community, because I don't believe we can ban the use of every plastic bag out there. as much as I would like to. I don't know how we could do that. What are we going to do? Give people fines for using a plastic bag more than once? So I think I like the idea of us doing something, but I want to make sure that it stands in what we do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I support this, but I just think it might be just a waste of staff time at this point to do it, because I think it's going to be beyond us, like really beyond us. I think we're at the RDN sending it to AVICC. I think it needs to go through the proper channels. What I would like to see is us write a letter maybe to these big companies to encourage them to put a levy at this point as a first step forward, that we can actually do something, because I just don't want to be wasting staff time on something that nobody else has done. I get it. Look, it's taking Victoria a year to get here. Do I want to waste staff time for a year to see where we're going to go? It makes it challenging for me. I will support it. I'm just hoping staff aren't going to spend a year and another $100,000 on a report for us, because it's not going to get us anywhere. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. I support the intent of the motion, and in fact, I indicated earlier in the meeting that I would be prepared in the new year to bring forward some type of notice of motion to ask staff for information. I don't think it's as easy as simply saying we're going to vote to ban all plastic bags. I don't think that's doable, despite the good intention. But I'm certainly interested in getting information from staff on what we can do and how we might go about doing it, and what other municipalities have done successfully. So I'm not sure of the exact wording of the motion. I'd ask to have that repeated, but I support the intent. But I guess what I'm looking at right now is information from staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bestwick.
Do you want to hear the amendment?
Thank you. I don't think I'm going to be able to help very much, other than to say that I think the intent is that the Bay, Save-On, Canadian Tire, Thrifties, all the bags when you go and you make a purchase and you put your canned goods in, or you put your hammer and nails in, or whatever you do, and for us to think that this is going to be a culture shock, that, oh my God, well, everybody at this room probably shops occasionally at Costco. And I think you've learned how to go to Costco now, where you don't have plastic bags available to you because you forgot your bag. So this isn't a huge culture shock. Plastic bags, does it mean Ziploc bags that come from Kraft or whoever does those? I don't think so. But I do think it means when I go to Larry's Sports or Source for Sports, I walk out with my pucks in a bag or a bucket. I don't put them in a plastic bag when I leave. I think that, so for me, it's pretty straightforward. And if we want staff to go away and find out what we can do so that we don't try to do something we can't do, then fine. But we need to start somewhere, and pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off isn't going to get us where we want to get to. And I think we've all witnessed what shock does. So if we want to try to get something done, we should try to shock people with something that's positive. And I think this is a positive shock.
Thank you. Ms. Sammer?
May I suggest some amendments for consideration? So it would be the City of Nanaimo Mayor and Council wishes to ban the use of plastic bags by retailers in the City of Nanaimo to the extent permitted by law, and direct staff to report back with options as soon as possible. That gives some context to it, and what I'm hearing is phased approach, and we can do that exploration. It's more of a legal, jurisdictional type exploration. There'll be a little bit of legal advice on it, but I don't see the need to retain consultants or spend $100,000 at this point. It can be fairly quickly answered.
Thank you. And the mover?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Well, let's get through procedure first, okay? So you're okay with that?
With the time frame, though, like ASAP.
Yes, as soon as possible.
Thanks. Seconder? Seconder? Okay, thank you. So, motion is,
The City of Nanaimo Mayor and Council wishes to ban the use of plastic bags by retailers in the City of Nanaimo to the extent permitted by laws and therefore direct staff to report back with options as soon as possible.
Councillor Yocum?
Just some quick comments. I heard some council members saying, are we allowed to, or is it doable, or what? Well, to me, why is it not doable? It's doable if we make the motion and make it happen. And it's, for example, I'm being repetitive, but why not lead? We had Mr. Manley and the presenters speak with facts, and it's a no-brainer, and they're a lot more profound on the subject than probably anyone at this table. And so I look forward to us hopefully supporting this, because it's too easy to say, oh, we may not be allowed, we're not allowed. Well, let's do something and lead, like Mr. Councillor Bestwick said, on something positive. So I look forward, and hopefully this motion passes for the best interest of the future and environment. I sure hope it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller?
Yeah, I'll support the motion as it stands now, because it should give us a better idea of exactly what we can do, because it's not just Ziploc bags. It seems like every 99 out of 100 bags that we use are made out of plastic, including produce bags. What I do like now is that the produce bags are made so crappily you can hardly put anything in them before they break, but then that allows me to use the thicker ones to carry my groceries out of. Just saying, but I will support the motion.
Thank you very much. No further speakers. There's a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right. That leads us into question period. Now, we have two delegations that have brought forward questions. The first one, Mr. McGrath. Question is, a catch-22. There was no report on item 11, public safety, available for the public to review before the Friday deadline. I then chose to speak to item 16B. Now that item is withdrawn. When is the delegation allowed to address council after waiting 2.5 hours? So after the item was withdrawn, I asked the clerk if it would be appropriate for someone to speak to an item that's no longer on the agenda. I looked around from council. Council didn't try to overrule my decision not to carry on with the item, and we moved on. So next one.
Oh, I get an answer. Sorry.
I just answered it.
Well, procedural answer that Councillor Brennan could have withdrawn it before had she saw that report. That would have saved the
certainly,
delegation.
And the item did come up on the addendum, and while it was after the Friday deadline, the delegation knows how to ask a member of council to bring him forward as delegation. So next one is we have Mr. Leon Cake. However, there's agenda items: solid waste collection bylaw, public safety item number 11, collection bin question, bin contract question, health service question, and unfortunately there are no questions here. So when I watched the tape or the video of the meeting in which council agreed to this new process, part of the idea was that there were questions, and it says right here, clearly outline your question. Well, if I could, clearly outline your question. I expect that in this box here, there's a question in there. There's not. So.
The ruling isn't that they need to use the proper punctuation, and you could invite the member of the public to take a moment to write down the questions so that you're able to review them. Because part of this question period, and I don't want city staff to be blamed for it, is to ensure the democratic rights of community members are afforded and that they're able to ask questions during question period. The purpose of the form was to ascertain whether or not they related to an agenda item, and invite them to be brought forward in the form of a question so that there wasn't speeches and a number of other things going on. So my recommendation to you is to use your ability as the chair to invite that member to be specific on what his questions are so that you know what they are coming forward and you have an opportunity to decide whether or not he can ask those questions. Normally, we suggest that there be 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, so you could use that time to do that. I will depart, but that is a parliamentary advice to you, and I would urge the members of the public going forward to write your question so we know what it is. How many bins are you going to deliver? When did you decide about the bins? Just saying I want to talk about bins is not right, so that's a correct ruling by you, Chair. I'm saying I don't know if you're asking questions or not. You need to let me know. And so you can do it back and forth.
It's the second one I want to talk to. It's about community health with downtown homeless people. So we scrap the first one. I didn't quite understand the process. I just have a question to council.
Sir, actually, you were here that night that this item was on the agenda, and I found it a little bit amusing that when we were looking for questions, and you came up and said, "Well, I don't really have a question; I just have a comment," and the chair didn't overrule you. So I watched the meeting very carefully. I think you know how it works. So I would suggest perhaps council, either you come back to our next meeting, next committee of the whole meeting and ask the questions, not on the agenda, or that council will take a 10-minute recess and we will wait for you to prepare your questions. What's council's pleasure? Okay, so you've got a question written down?
It's regarding public showers.
Right, but you didn't bring it forward. You didn't bring it forward for staff to review.
Yeah, I didn't get it right, sorry, sir. I didn't get it right with the question. So I made a mistake, I apologize. So I just have one question.
Okay, what's council's pleasure?
Can I read what he wrote down, because I don't know.
The question is about.
Sir, come up to the podium.
Okay, let's just roll.
So what Mr. Cake has put here is he has clearly outlined your question, health service question.
They didn't ask.
There's no question, Councillor.
Well, it's the subject matter.
No, not. It needs to be a question, sir.
So in regards to the amendment,
That was one of your friends, would you do that?
Yes, sir.
I don't think you would.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Councillor?
This is important.
You're out of order.
This,
out of order.
okay, so this is regarding the health social safety issues. So everyone knows I'm very involved with our people downtown, our community. And in particular right now, I'm working with a woman that's I've got her set up in a tent because was in an abusive situation. And I've been spending a lot of time with her, and she's telling me a lot of things about our inner workings of our community. She's been out of her car. Woman, she was abused. She was in her car for 6 months. I've got her set up. But one of the things, listening to our community, when I work at the 710 and I serve the community, I hear the biggest question asked is, they want showers. They would like to go and have a shower. So when we're talking about the dignity and maybe the violence or maybe the people who are agitated downtown, maybe they haven't had a shower for 3 months, and part of the feeling is that they feel uncleansed and they feel dirty. There is no resource downtown for that to be offered as either a public shower facility open from a certain hour. She tried to go to our public pools, and she was looked at. She's a recovering crack addict, 8 years clean. She's dirty-fingered. She's pot-marked face, and when she went there to use the shower, her dignity was put in question regarding why she was there. So what I'm asking,
I need
so
a question
the question is,
relative to the agenda item.
would our council give consideration to have a facility downtown where our homeless people could use it, a public facility in a location somewhere downtown, that they could go and have a shower? We have a $100,000 toilet that didn't really do what it needs to do. The shower, I can tell you, they'll respect that. They won't destroy the showers. They won't go in there and rip things out because they will want to have that shower. And that's what I hear from our community.
Can council answer your question now?
Sorry?
Can council answer
Sure,
your
yes.
question? Okay. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you. If you're interested in doing this, speak to the owner of Mosaic. The Rotary Daybreak is looking for something to champion, and they actually approached me for some ideas. And one of the ideas they had, which I do think is great, is showers. They wanted to know what I thought was good. I said showers. They wanted to know what they thought was good. They said showers. It's how we can do it. So definitely something that needs to be done, because I hear the same. Showers are needed. If people can't bathe,
so
they're less likely to be allowed into anything.
So would the city be willing to give me land downtown so I could get the community behind this? Because that's all they ask of at the 710 when they've had breakfast. They just go, I wish I could have a shower. And they're dirty. So their dignity could be brought up.
Let's work through this.
Yeah.
Councillor Armstrong.
I just wanted to say, Mr. Cake, that this was brought up at the last public safety meeting, that we were actually looking at mobile showers, that they're being done in the United States. So we're doing some more research on that, our group, to see if that's a possibility to bring here and what the cost would be, because it's I think it's a very viable solution, because then you could move it to the different areas that's required. So we are looking at that. It was brought up last week. So.
Well, thank you, because I think that needs to come quicker than later, because I'll tell you why. The provincial campgrounds turn the water off. There's no showers where I have her set up right now. There is no showers. They turn them off.
Councillor Brennan wishes to answer your
Sorry,
question.
yes.
Councillor Brennan.
I would be happy to see that happen. I would be happy to look at it, a land donation, if that's what it took, or simply building showers in a park. So, yeah, fully support it.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I support showers. And like Councillor Armstrong, I think mobile showers are the best idea. I would not support giving land to build a shower facility. Not downtown. Because we talk about concentration and stuff. We talk about not allowing VHAL to have a fixed location. Mobile is the best option. I fully support mobile, just like I support the mobile and the other stuff for VHAL. So I will not support a fixed location for showers.
Thank you. Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. I'm fortunate in different circumstances, but see the mobile showers being a positive way to go. See everyone travel journeys, and we move it around. But I think it'd be very beneficial to the city. I'd be supportive of mobile showers. We move it around for where the people, the hot spots may be, and for the people that need the showers. And then just a quick comment, sort of related to this subject. I'm not in favor of these papers for questions. I don't have the paper because it creates a lot of chaos. I look forward to eliminating these papers you had to go through. Sorry about the chaos. Just ask a positive question, Mr. Cake. Thank you.
Well, I like the dialogue because I do a thing called Street Store, and what you're saying would be perfect when I put a street store up. We have a mobile shower. You don't need to see me. I can move it around. If the city would consider funding something like that, looking at something like that, passing a bylaw so it could be mobile, that's a huge thing. So I ask the city to have this discussion and take it to your committees, because, like I say, there's a lot of women in our city right now that are living in the bush, living in their cars. I've got to know a lot about our city from this lady. And so, yes, thank you for your time. And I would really, really like you to make it move quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller?
Yeah, I'd actually propose that staff look into the cost of a mobile shower and work with community partners to purchase one. So if I need to make a notice of motion, it being so late in the day, I will bring that to the next available council meeting as a notice of motion.
Thank you. Next one is Mr. Manor. And the question is, has there been a look at showers at the port being available for use? Does anybody on council have an answer to that question?
Well, just the people can go down and pay for money for the shower building down on the Port Authority land. I know that.
I did, sir. Sir, you need to come to the podium.
Anybody checked into the possibility of the showers at the port Warfinger's office being used by these people that need the showers free of charge.
Okay, so Councillor Armstrong wants to answer your question.
That-
Councillor Armstrong.
Those are issues that we are looking at from the public safety. When showers became an issue, we're looking at what city facilities are available, what other organizations are available, and the mobile showers. And then I'll defer to Councillor Kipp because I think he knows.
No, just that they have, the other one is the Franklin Street Gym has showers in the basement, the old change rooms. But the problem is that Tillicum House goes there with their children's programs, and they were opposed to having the people in there. But there's showers in the downstairs, right across from Harris House, downstairs, showers and everything. The school board hasn't put much money into it. We haven't put much money into it over the years, and it sits there, and it's not used. And there's hot water tanks and everything, so.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.
I would like to.
We're adjourned, sir.
Go ahead, I'll listen.